Usually gives
I would. It wasn't really noticed to the public where they couldn't see it, so I would.
We're on. Don't do that to our viewers. Sorry, sir. I learned that last week. I was being gentle, though. All right, good morning. Woo. Somebody turned these things up, didn't they? That's good. So welcome to our Board of Supervisors meeting for August 11, 2015. We had two closed sessions this morning, and there's no action to report out. So I would like to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Adam, could you lead us, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, any board announcements? All right, so we'll go to public comment. Public comment is any item of interest to the public that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board and is not posted on the consent agenda or regular agendas may be addressed during the public comment period. California law prohibits the board from taking action on any matter which is not posted on the agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the Board of Supervisors. If public comment is completed before the 30-minute allotted time period, the board may immediately move to the consent agenda. If public comment is not completed during the allotted time period, it will be continued at the conclusion of the regular agenda in order to provide an opportunity for the remainder of comments to be heard. So can I ask how many folks plan on making comments during a public comment? Okay. So we're going to do public comments. We'll give you 5 minutes.
Oh, I'm easy, folks. My name is Peter Reyes from Jenny Lynn, and I'd like to make one thing. First of all, it does affect every one of your constituents in a county. Recently, there's an appeals court ruling that found that, so I pronounce it right, and maybe I need some interpreter on this. Tiered regulated water rates, CCWD, where first so much water, what rate? If you use more than that, different rate. Well, month and a half ago, appeals court ruled that it was unconstitutional. And the reason I bring it in front of you, because there's a little bit more exposure on the TV camera. Water District still does it. Now that's your creation, that's your baby, CCWD. And it's slightly, because I don't know if you realize how many $1 million you're giving to CCWD, even though they're not on getting no benefits. So I would very much, first I'd like to thank the lady from now on, because we do have a big exposure over here with the camera. They will put it on so you can receive it YouTube and on a computer. There are meetings. Sometimes it's amazing what directors tell Constitution on public speaking to kiss their butt. It would be nice to have it to see their ideology. That's one thing. Another thing I would like to bring forward is on the 29th, Jenny Lynn Firehouse going to host Representative of Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association and a gentleman by the name of George Runner. He's going to be at Jenny Lynn Firehouse. And it's going to be hopefully continuous for the future, because we feel kind of neglected. To some still believe the world starts and ends on Highway 4 and 49. We do have a few people along Highway 26 also. So And it's not going to be sponsored by any state or federal government agency. It's not going to be sponsored and paid for by Caltrans or any other outside interest. It's going to be strictly just the folks in the area. Everybody's going to be welcome. You're not going to have to sign in. And just a question of discussion. No signing in, doesn't cost you any money. You're not going to keep records, but just a question of discussion. So I would encourage, if you have nothing better to do, we'd love to have you coming down to General and Fire District, and we will have open discussion, roundtable discussion. I was going to recognize somebody, but I'm sure you folks will. I hope so. And I want to thank you for your work up to now. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate all the BS you folks have to go through. I recognize it, and you guys do a good job. Thank you.
You guys document that?
You can send something around and see how many people would sign it. Good morning, folks. My name's Bonnie Newman. I'm from Double Springs. And today I haven't come to rag about anything to anybody. I want to talk about something that is wonderful. I want to talk to you about a very beautiful place. To me, it's the center of the universe. It's a place that the Indians revered and used to use hundreds and thousands of years ago. It was taken over by the white man and established as Double Springs. Long time ago, Highway 12 and 26 were mere footpaths used by the indigenous people to move from the valley to the mountains. At some point, they became pony trails, then they became wagon trails, and then they became streets and highways. In those days, before Double Springs was known as Double Springs, it was called The Springs. The Springs is right at the base of the foothills. It's the path where about 3 or 4 rivulets and streams meet, and you can dig down 6 feet on Double Springs and hit water. Water is so abundant on Double Springs. Now you may have to dig 12 feet, but water is abundant on Double Springs. People used to, when they had wagons, start going to the foothills, the mining claims, the diggings, and when you came from the valley, it was all relatively flat and easy. When you get to Valley Springs, the grade begins to change. When you get to Double Springs, the last great watering hole where you can replenish your stock and your oxen and mules and horses, you have to double up your teams to get up the hill. Double Springs was not known as Double Springs because there's 2 springs, because it should have been called Dozens Springs. Double Springs was called Double Springs because that's where you doubled up your team. And so to overturn what the Indians called the springs, white men began calling Double Springs. Double Springs was so primo that the white man decided to make it its first county seat. You all should be sitting down there on Double Springs. If those thieves from Oak Hill hadn't come and stole our records and taken them off, you would be back down there, and you'd have water. You wouldn't be able to understand what people are talking about, the drought. That was 150, 60, 70 years ago, and I got to bury the hatchet. But Double Springs is still beautiful. When I moved there in 1974, there were frogs everywhere. I went to my next door neighbor and I said, I never seen anything like this. She said, oh honey, used to be you couldn't put your foot down without stepping on a frog. This is nothing. Well, it's just about nothing now. We don't got no more frogs to speak of down there. Lots changed in 40 years. But Double Springs is still beautiful. We have eagle nests. well, I call them eagles, they're hawks, but they're beautiful and they fly like eagles. We have coyotes, we have possums, we have coons, we have porcupines, we have fox, and unfortunately we have a lot of animals that people think they can dump off the side of the road and, you know, leave pregnant cats there because it's so beautiful, and let you know they find their way to my house because I got a nice yard. It's kind of shady and they can have nice kittens under the woodshed, and then I got to catch them and bring them all to the pound and suffer the heartache of knowing they're going to be killed. Anyway, I want to get back to the positive of Double Springs, because Double Springs is a haven. We have maybe 10 people living on the entire road. The only thing bad that's happened is about 6 or 7 years ago, the county came through and repaved our road and made it smooth as glass, and so now people use it as the alternative to the highway.
30 seconds.
I didn't understand why the county would put so much money into repaving an old pony path, but the year after that, PG&E put in their $30 million power plant at the top of Double Springs. So I wonder why the taxpayers in Calaveras County had to pay for a nice road for PG&E to take care of business on, but my 30 minutes may be up. There's more to talk about Double Springs, and I shall come back. Thank you very much.
Tom Infacino, Calaveras Planning Coalition. On June 30th, you gave direction to planning staff and to the Planning Commission. You asked the planning staff to review the 1,000 pages of public comments submitted on the 2014 draft general plan through March of this year. You asked them to suggest any necessary changes to that plan. And you asked the Planning Commission to provide you advice regarding which of those recommendations you should accept. The planning staff is doing exactly what you directed. They are going through each section of the plan. They are going to the Planning Commission with their very few recommended changes. However, the Planning Commission is not limiting their review of the plan to those few recommended changes from staff. The Planning Commission is going through each section of the general plan, page by page, paragraph by paragraph, sentence by sentence, and making whatever changes 3 commissioners see fit. Why should you care? First, you have said you want a general plan as soon as possible. At the rate the Planning Commission is going, I doubt you will see the project description plan back to you by Thanksgiving, and more likely it will be part of your Christmas or New Year's celebrations. You have said you want a legally adequate general plan. If the Planning Commission proceeds in making changes that are not recommended by your planning staff, you may not get a legally adequate general plan back from the Planning Commission. There is still time for you to stop this. Direct the Planning Commission again to consider only the changes planning staff is recommending based on staff's review of the public comments on the general plan. Now, the Calaveras Planning Coalition will not get what it wants through this process because the planning staff is hostile to our suggestions. However, you will get your plan back quicker, and it may still resemble the 2014 draft you entrusted to the care of the Planning Commission on June 30th. We ask you to address this issue on your next agenda. Thank you, and God bless.
Good morning. I'm Carrie Peterson from Central Sierra Child Support Agency, the Tuolumne office. August is Child Support Awareness Month, and we would like to provide the board with some information about who we are and what we do. Central Sierra Child Support Agency is a joint powers authority comprised of 4 counties: Alpine, Amador, Calaveras, and Tuolumne. Board members from each of the 4 counties make up our JPA. Current members from Calaveras are Debbie Ponte and Michael Ayler-Vera. Central Sierra Child Support Agency currently serves 4,936 families, or children of families, and so far this year we've collected $9,149,215.12. That all goes to families within our local agency. We are ranked number 5 overall for performance statewide. Child support offices, our child support agency offers many services for families. We brought with us today some flyers if you would like to see, just so you have an idea of what we do. Some of those include establishing paternity, establishing a court order for child support and medical support when parties do not have a court order of their own, enforcing child support orders including current support, spousal support, medical support, and any arrears that have accrued over time. We obtain health insurance coverage for dependents, and we also locate non-custodial and custodial parent for establishment and enforcement purposes. Child support payments that are collected for families receiving public assistance are reimbursed back to the county for funds expended. So we do help bring money back into each local office or agency. Cases may be opened via online application or by contacting any of the local child support agencies. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I give this to you?
Good job.
Supervisors, good morning. Adam Pugh with Congressman Tom McClintock's office. I wanted to give you a brief update on two bills that have currently passed the House that the Congressman has co-sponsored, and they are currently sitting in the Natural Resource Committee on the Senate, or in the Senate. First one is H.R. 2898. It is called the Western Water and American Food Securities Act of 2015. It would revise the regulatory standards for managing water conveyances of water to individual, agricultural, industrial, and municipal water users. It would use the updated water intake levels, the water export restrictions, and other conservation measures. It would also use the biological opinion from the U.S. Department of Fish and Wildlife from 2008 and 2009. One of the other key components of it is that it would replace the fish hatcheries with the natural water temperatures that fish is originally from. And another key component is that it would expedite the water projects that the California governor has requested, and for the California Central Valley project. The next bill that I wanted to cover really quickly, the Resilient Federal Force Act of 2015, H.R. 2647. It would force the NEPA process to be developed through a collaborative process. Once it is completed, it would then send that proposed NEPA to the Resource Advisory Committee. It would also force the respective departments to a force management activity, and if it chooses not to submit a force management plan, it forces them to then explain exactly why not. It would have the effect on the forest health, the habitat diversity, the wildfire potential, the insect disease potential, and the long-term implications of those things as well. It would then increase the categorical exclusions and expedite the critical response, expedite the salvage, and eventually meet the forest plan goals originally set out. Lastly, it would have the environmental assessment must be completed within 3 months for salvage requests for burned areas. Lastly, I do want to note that the Congressman will be in Amador at Ione City Hall on Wednesday, August 26th, for a town hall from 6 to 7:30. I'm still trying to get him to come down to Calaveras County to hold the town hall down here, but as of right now, that is the closest one to this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Richard Inderline. I'm a citizen of Calaveras County. I'm not sure if this is the time I'm supposed to be speaking on this, since nobody else seems to have spoken on the asphalt plant. Is there going to be a comment later?
Yes.
Okay, so that's for the proposed asphalt plant. That's the one where we're going to be talking about permitting and everything else. I would like to take my time this moment to talk about the asphalt plant that is already there. While you guys are sitting here making your decision, there's an asphalt plant that is already sitting there. So when you look in your environmental documents, you're going to see things like store, stage, assemble, operate, take down.
Excuse me, sir. We're going to take comments on the asphalt plant later.
But this is not the proposed asphalt plant. I'm asking you to take the, your code compliance. There is already in operation. There is already a facility there that is being put in. Before you have even given them permission, before you have even said it's okay or not, somebody in your county is breaking the law. And I am coming to you now to ask you to get code compliance to get out there and enforce your code. It doesn't matter whether it's an asphalt plant, doesn't matter whether it's me wanting to store nuclear waste. I'm coming to you now to tell you that somebody is breaking your codes and you are not doing anything about it. Please get to code compliance and make them do their job. Thank you.
Any other public comments?
Good morning. Al Segala, Taxpayer Association. I'd like to urge you to consider the two bills that Congressman Clintock is providing. One is for concerning the fish flows, and the other one has to do with forest salvage. And our group is very much concerned with having better government, and I think that those bills are going to work towards that end. On the positive side, the taxpayer group is having a annual barbecue on the 29th. Now this is a Saturday, the same day that there's going to be an event in Valley Springs on discussion of the fire tax, sometimes called the fire fee. And it's worked out with the speakers. George Runner will also be our keynote speaker. He'll have plenty of time to go from that event to our event, which is in Valley Springs. Also, the two representatives from Howard Jowers Taxpayer Association, same thing. We got a slot for them as well. So we probably be discussing fire tax issues, but a lot more taxpayer issues with George Runner than just that. Also at that meeting on the 29th, we'll have a panel discussion, which we did last year. It was very successful with public officials from our county. And we hope that that will be also interesting. We'll have a report from Dennis Mills, probably talking about the issue of fish flows, but he may have something else on his mind. We don't censor what he wants to say, but everything he says seems to be very interesting. And we'll have two awards. We'll have an award for the our award for excellence in public service. One of them is going to go to forget his name already. Joel Mesker, particularly honoring his work he'd done to reduce the required cutback on CCD water from 36%, no, 32% down to 16%, which is an incredible feat and just a blessing. It turns out, due to the educational activities that he also has done, we've reduced consumption 40%. And so it looks like we kind of like saved on water. One of the consequences, negative consequences of having low flow water in our pipelines is that it does cause a problem requiring pipelines to be flushed, and in so doing, you may lose part or a good part of the savings on having less water consumption. The event on the 29th between 5 and 8 is going to be on Steve Fairchild's property, same as last year, on a mountaintop. Very beautiful setting. And there'll be signs on the highway and balloons where you can't miss it. Also, we just have a new addition, a fellow by the name of Grimstead, Jay Grimstead, who's a musician, among other things. He plays the bugle, and he'll be playing reveille and taps. So everybody that's there that's a veteran, which will probably be a lot of people, will particularly enjoy that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is George Fry. I have a public service announcement on September 1st at the up on the hill from the American Legion Post 102 in Valley Springs. The American Legion's Boys State people, young folks that were juniors in high school this last year, we were going to have hot dogs and hamburgers, and they're going to come and speak about their experience of spending a week at Cal State University, Sacramento. And it was pretty amazing to me when the first day they were there, and then to see them a week later after that experience of a quasi-governmental experience that they had. One of the young men came up to me and he said, "I really appreciate you veterans selecting me to go to Boys State." He said, "I learned so much from it." So this is an invite to everybody, and I hope that maybe along the way we will be able to pick up some additional veterans that would join the American Legion in Valley Springs. We're a very active Legion. We have 198 members. We meet the first Tuesday of every month, and September 1st is the first Tuesday. And we have free dinner with the meeting. And also, I started the Speakers Bureau about 6 months ago, and I'm trying to bring in people who have had experiences in the military that were really very unique. And the first speaker I had was a fellow out of Railroad Flat who was a prisoner of war in Vietnam. It was a short period of time he was able to escape, but he's one of only 2 U.S. service people that received the Medal of Honor that is presented to by the South Vietnamese, and he speaks Vietnamese fluently. And the general at the time that came out to Vietnam was going to give him a direct commission as a second lieutenant in the field. He said, "Well, I'd rather be a staff sergeant and stay alive." So that was his choice. The last speaker we had was a jet fighter pilot, a retired Navy commander who spent 21 years in the service, 386 missions in Vietnam, 2 tours on the Kitty Hawk. His first flight out and back, his plane was all shot up, and the aircraft handler on the Kitty Hawk said, "You better find some place to land on the ground because you're not landing on this aircraft carrier." So he had to find some place on the ground. Not only that, but during those 386 missions, he got shot down twice and was able to return to our South Vietnamese area. So I just once again would ask that you come and see what these young boys, young men have experienced this past summer. I know some of you have already seen that with others. It's just an incredible thing. There was 1,008 boys statewide that attended that, and it was just awesome. Thank you.
What time, George?
It starts at 5:30. Thank you for the question. That also.
It's in the Jenny Lynn's Veterans Park, right?
Yeah. What do they call that?
Gazebo?
The gazebo, thank you. I couldn't think of the word. It's at the gazebo.
Valley Springs.
Yeah, It's just around the road and up on top. And it's an incredible thing to see. The other thing is, Supervisor Kearney, I thank you for pushing so hard to get it in the budget for us to, I see advertised a Veterans Services representative. It's long overdue, and I thank you very much. I know that you have been the impetus behind that, and I thank you.
Thank you, George. I had help.
My name is Laura Most, and I reside in Rancho Calaveras. Because George came up, I thought I would too, because Lucky Logan, does any of you know him? He's the golf pro down at the Lockington. Thank you. There's a really nice article in the Seniors magazine. He was a World War II fighter pilot. He won many awards. It's 5 pages in that senior magazine. If you could pick it up, that would be great.
Thank you. I might add, he's going to be a future speaker for our Speakers Bureau at the American Legion Post.
Any other public comments? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to our consent agenda. Consent agenda items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They will be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member, staff member, or interested party may request removal of an item from the consent agenda for later discussion. Does any member of the public wish to remove a consent item? Peter?
Number 8, please.
Number 8. Any others?
5, 6, 7, and 8, please.
Okay. Any others? We have 3 left.
How about adding 5 to that too, please? I'm sorry, 4.
4. Okay, 4. I knew we'd get there eventually.
Going once, going twice.
All right. So, any member of the board wish to remove the remaining item?
There's 2, isn't there?
Yeah.
Well, there's the minutes. And there's 9.
Oh, so 3.
Okay, we got 3.
No.
All right, can I have a motion, please?
I move that we accept the remaining of the consent agenda.
Okay, so I have a motion by Supervisor Kearney.
I'll second.
And a second by Supervisor Wright. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, number 4, Joe?
Joe Kelly, everything I'm going to speak, Joe Kelly from the unrepresented area of District 1. This is a behavioral health, mental health program, and it talks about an agreement with Kingsview Corporation for implementation and support of the Cerner Community Behavioral Health Electronic Health Record and Medical Claiming Software System for the 3-year period July 1st, 2015, June 2018, in the amount not to exceed $500,000. Where do these monies come from? Well, how, the whole spectrum of where do they come from and how they're put into this position on this program. Thank you.
Good morning, Supervisors. Mary Sawicki, Director of Calaveras Health and Human Services. This particular set of funding that funds this is all Medi-Cal funding. This particular funding goes towards the billing system for Medi-Cal for our behavioral health services. It is specialized, and it is specialized in the respect that it is both the electronic records and the billing service. It is a nonprofit corporation, by the way, that we utilize along with a number of other counties, roughly around 39.
Mary, in the financing, it says Mental Health Services Act and Mental Health Requirement Funds support the ongoing cost
Yes.
of the software system?
Yeah,
Are
it's
those
a
federally
mixture of
supported
funds and realignment,
They're federally supported funds?
Yes,
Okay.
it's a mixture of a whole variety of funding that behavioral health has. Mental Health Services Act fund is some of the funding. There's also the Medi-Cal funding. There's, realignment funds, et cetera.
Potluck of funding.
Yes, but none from the county.
Thank you very much.
Mary, just one
Yes, sir.
quick question. The software is used by other counties and other agencies?
Yes, other behavioral health services. We actually are together in a consortium of purchase.
Okay. Thank you.
And it is a nonprofit corporation.
Since this is a nonprofit, Joe Kelly again, since this is a nonprofit, who oversights it? And how does the oversight go out to look at things? Thank you.
The Kingview Corporation is an actual nonprofit corporation, and they do the oversight. We purchase the service.
Okay. Any other public comments?
I'll make a motion to approve. I second the motion.
So a motion by Supervisor Wright, a second by Supervisor Kearney. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's 5-0. Number 5, Mr. Kelly.
Joe Kelly from the unrepresented area of District 1. This is a discussion of the psychiatric treatment services in the amount not to exceed $120,000 for a 3-year period, July 1st, 14 through June 30th, 17. My question on this would be, what is managed care funding and where does it originate or come from, and who oversights this project? Thank you.
My question is more a notation here. I'm noticing that we're going to spend of taxpayers' money $500,000 on software, computer junk, and we're only for 3 years, but we're only going to spend $120,000 for the actual treatment services for these people. I mean, there's lots of money. There's lots of money, no matter how you look at it. It's just going to the wrong places.
Okay, I'll take the last comment first. This is one of many contracts that we have for psychiatric hospitalization. As I've said previously, when we have someone who is in need of hospitalization services, trying to find a bed sometimes is very difficult, and so we try to find the most appropriate setting for our clients and finding a bed and matching the two together. And as I've said before, it's difficult. All of our psychiatric beds are outside of the county, and we just keep looking for the right particular level that the person needs and match that at the time. Just because we have a particular contract doesn't mean we use it. I have to be very careful about that. It just means that we have an agreement with them in the event that we need that particular service, that we have the ability then to refer someone to that. On the issue of managed care has been around for many, many years. That is a concept that was originally created. Kaiser is a managed care plan. Behavioral health services is a carve-out of managed care. It is for the severely mentally ill. It's a concept in which someone's health care is overseen by usually a group that takes a look at the holistic health needs of someone. And I think that's the most easiest way to talk about it.
So it's a level of an insurance plan?
Yes, it is. Yes, and it just means that someone oversees it.
Right.
Other questions?
Well, I'll ask. Any other questions from the public? No? From the board?
I move we accept.
Okay.
Second.
So I have a motion by Supervisor Kearney, second by Supervisor Oliver. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right. Mr. Kelly, number 6.
Joe Kelly from the unrepresented area of District 1. Number 6 is a addendum with locum tenens for the provision of child psychiatrists for a 2-year period. What is the, somewhere I read, maybe I'm, yeah. What is the local mental health realignment funds? Where do the monies come from? How are they managed and how are they oversighted in this issue here? Thank you.
The realignment funds come from the state. Those are the state funds that are used to match for the Medi-Cal and for, in the past, the state used to have 100% of the match for Medi-Cal. When they transfer local decision-making, with that came the realignment funds. And we now, because we are the management firm, so to speak, the managed care for behavioral health, for the severely mentally ill, those funds come with it. Other questions?
Any questions from the public on that?
Peter Ray's gentleman, I'm very impressed with all the good nature and goodwill and etc. But we looked at 3 items over here. It's almost $1 million, folks. I would like to know how many mental patients they have. I don't want their names, I don't want their phone number or address. And this is repeatedly almost every board's meeting, a couple hundred here, and I'm talking about thousands or so on. Some of it stays in the county, someone goes out of the county. That's one of my questions. I want to know how many actual mental patients this county has. I mean, I got my opinion on it, but I don't want to come across as a total mean person. But just because it's not comes out of general fund, your name's still at the bottom, and it's still coming from your constituents' pocket. With all that money, can anybody on this board, since your name's at the bottom of signature, can guarantee or state it strictly that any of those kids that they want to take care of is not a victim of that Planned Parenthood dilemma right now we have in this country? When you're taking out 11, 12, 13, 14, all the way up to, well, 45 years, when they deliver it outside the county for problems, law enforcement doesn't get involved. You don't get involved. Does anybody can tell me, since your signature is at the bottom of these funds, and I know it doesn't affect your general fund, can tell me that these donations that you sign, I don't care where it's coming, fed, state, local, whatever, that has no connection to any of the Planned Parenthood dilemma in this country.
Who cares, Peter? Who cares?
I do.
Sit down.
I do.
Enough.
Sorry, you know, Peter has his allotted time period up here, and I don't want anybody to interrupt him. That's his right, Okay?
Anyway, you're talking about a lot of money, and I'm sure the intentions are good, but someplace along the line, I'd like to know where it goes for. How much it goes to administration, and how much it goes to the meeting. Thank you.
I can't stand by. I've been in the mental health arena for over 20 years. I served on the Calaveras County Mental Health Board for 12 years. Several times during that 12 years, I was the chair. We probably have one of the best behavioral health departments statewide. We've gotten statewide recognition. I served 12 years on the California Mental Health Planning Council. It was an appointment by the mental health director of the state of California. I just want you to know that this is absolutely one of the best behavioral health departments. They take care of the people and they do a good job, and I want you to know that. Thank
you. Bonnie Newman from Double Springs. Obviously, mental health has nothing to do with Planned Parenthood. My speaking out was objecting to someone using this forum to promote their own special interest, their own special agenda. Common sense, mental health is not Planned Parenthood.
Chair, could you instruct speakers to use the microphone, sir?
Yeah. All right, any other public comments on this item? All right, so any board comments?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
So we have a motion by Supervisor Wright, second by Supervisor Ponte. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Number 7. Mr. Kelly.
Joe Kelly from the unrepresented area of District 1, so that I won't have Bonnie yelling at me. Under a page 4 of 19 on this idea is availability of funds, certification of funds, budget, physical provisions, termination in the event of non-appropriation. This agreement is funded by a First 5 Calaveras grant with monies from California's Proposition 10 tobacco tax funded Children and Families Act. The state of California, through legislative change, may alter or repeal the law which provides funds for this agreement. The state of California may enact requirements that affect the performance of the grantee. It goes on to say, if for any reason California's Children and Families Act does not have sufficient revenue available to the Commission at the funding level provided in this agreement, and or there is a legal ruling that renders the Commission unable to disperse funds in the Commission's trust fund, and it goes on. My questions: what is the nexus of Children's Dental Project, dental services, and tobacco taxes, besides a corrupt state legislature that want to steal money from our wallets and spread out the wealth? It's not their wealth, it's not their correct taxation, it's their theft. And then my last question is, how many children are served? Thank you.
Hi, Richard Enderline again. You look in that corner, that one. That one was served.
Well, there's one, Joe.
There's one.
Any other public?
Okay.
Any other public comments
I
on
didn't
that?
see the child sitting back there.
Board comments?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, before I call this out, I'll let you know that I have a little bit of experience in this. There are a number of kids in our county that do not get proper dental care. I know that Dr. Motsu down here in San Andreas sees a lot of them. I can't tell you the numbers because I don't know the numbers. I know there's a lot. I know that we hire a lot of folks at our restaurant that are young people that have come up, lived here in Calaveras County. Most of them have problems with dental care, and we try to help that situation out if we can. In a lot of cases, it's not their fault. They may not have had the right parents to do the right things for them. And it is very important for a person's self-esteem once they reach in, get a little bit older and into the teenage era, that they can, it helps them succeed if they can feel confidence within themselves. And not to mention the health-related problems. So I actually like this program very much.
Point of order. The question of nexus still hasn't been answered. I'd like to understand what it is.
I don't have it.
But you approve of taking tobacco taxes, something totally opposite, to do this. I don't mind the children being cared for.
Joe, may I make a suggestion? Talk to Mary Sawicki back there offline.
Well, if Mary is able to talk about it, why can't she get up and answer it?
Because we already have a motion on the floor and public comment's been taken.
Well, then you should have asked her to come up.
Yeah, we should have, but we didn't. So
Well,
now
thank
public
you.
comment's
Thank
done.
you.
You can talk there afterwards.
Sorry, I'll take her. Yeah, Mary.
Prop 10 funds, which are the tobacco funds, are the source of funding for First Five.
Okay.
Right, can you speak into the microphone a little bit?
Yeah.
I do have a question. When Prop 10 was voted on, wasn't the taxes were being collected with the intent to go back into the medical system?
That is correct.
And so with that, these grants are then available to us from the state level that filter down to the First Five program, and we are using Prop 10 funds to support the dental program here. Is that correct?
Yes, especially because we do not have dental services for our low income, or we have no dentist presently willing to accept Medi-Cal in our county, as we've talked about previously as well.
Okay, but the Prop 10 funds were, when we voted on it, going back into the medical system in some capacity for prevention.
For prevention and
Treatment
and the education piece, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Broadcaster Sally Springs. If I might just add something to the question of nexus, tobacco products aren't simply cigarettes. When we're talking about stuff like smokeless tobacco and chewing tobacco, there are a lot of problems with gum disease and dental-related problems. So I would suggest there is some kind of a nexus there.
Thank you, sir. That's a really good point.
And plus, just smoking tobacco actually has a lot of nexus to dental problems.
All right, so we have motion by who? Yes. By Supervisor Wright, second by Supervisor Oliveira. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's 5-0. Finally, number 8. Your turn, Peter.
Peter is genuine. I'm glad for the previous commentator. It makes me a justification for my dirty, filthy, expensive, rotten habit that I smoke. Now it goes for a good cause. I feel so much better, folks.
I appreciate your smoking.
I hope you do.
Yes.
I know you always appreciate what I have to say. Thank you. Public Works asking for a blanket purchase orders for each of the following items. Now, it names a number of them, and one of them is for $550,000. Isn't that great? Is that without giving a blanket check for one company? Is that going to go out to bid? Are they going to decide maybe, hey, these folks are upset with me here. Maybe we should cut out doing any asphalt in the county. We could make money, pick up all the asphalt that goes through the pure forest, pick it up and ship it back. We can get some money back on it. Matter of fact, I would love to hear the folks who don't want asphalt on the street. We got plenty of rocks, we can just have gravel. And people can give up riding their bicycle, pedaling their, you know what, up and down the street. I want to know how the hell you can determine to give a blanket checks to one company at this size and none of them putting out the bids. Thank you, folks.
So Joe Kelly from the unrepresented area of District 1, it appears that this is the fiscal year start for vendor values. And as we always see during the year, we always see it have to be modified and increased. So how do you folks determine these start values? Because they all seem to start out at the same value every year. Why aren't you increasing it for cost of increase of parts, labor, and everything else for the vendors? Or looking into it to bring that rather than just starting out at an arbitrary, well, I call it an arbitrary figure because it's never changed in the fiscal year start. So how is it determined for the fiscal year start? Thank you.
Alsa Gallant, Taxpayer Association. I was able to understand Peter's comments, and he's got a good point. It'd be good to know if these different functions are being put out to bid or not. And also, it seems like these amounts of money are almost like a budget item that it may not be spent, it may be less than that, but they're authorized to spend up to that amount to that particular vendor for their services. So the important question is, if they're not put out to bid, why not? And then to confirm that these funds are not actually being spent, but could be spent up to that amount. Thank you.
Jeff Kovitz, Director of Public Works. There seems to be some general misunderstanding about what this item is about. Generally, our budgets for the last several years have remained flat. We do analysis prior to putting the budget together to attempt to maintain a flat budget. If emergencies arise or specific needs on a specific road are over what we had anticipated, we will go up. But the purpose of this item is to allow us to have purchasing authority within our budgets without having to return to the Board of Supervisors or without short-circuiting the Public Contracts Code, competitive bid process. It allows us to perform repetitive and miscellaneous, low dollar, and I'll talk to that in a minute, day-to-day operational needs. These are vendors that we have used. They do not represent the total of what we expend. So for example, the $90,000 blanket purchase order with Calaveras Auto Supply is a portion of what we use in parts for our equipment and our vehicles annually. And this allows us not to have to come back to the board when we've exceeded my purchasing authority or the CAO's purchasing authority. And these are day-to-day ongoing operations. And it represents all the Public Works Department, more than just roads and bridges. It also represents the integrated waste management equipment and vehicles, public works vehicles, and transit vehicles. The funds for these are actually coming out of those various line items. So, and again, when you look at the cost of George Reed, he's not the only vendor that we are buying asphalt from or aggregate-based material from for road maintenance activities. He is one of them. With our informal analysis that we do at budget every year, we compare him against, or compare local vendors against non-local vendors. If they remain competitive within the field, then we go ahead and use the locals with a preference to this amount. The $550,000 is not an excessive amount. It sounds like a large amount, but when you start talking about the number of roads, the paving, the short overlays and patching that we do, in a given year, it's fairly small. It is relatively small, and we will be purchasing more than that equivalent amount in road base and road maintenance materials
from both George Reed and other vendors. One last example I'll give you, you'll notice that there's 2 contracts here for fuel. These are ongoing contracts. We know we purchase more than half of our fuel from these 2 local vendors, but we also purchase from other vendors, especially when, for example, I'm driving to Northern California to go visit a landfill or a composting facility. I can't buy from Hunt & Sons or Valley Petroleum. Valley Petroleum basically takes care of the Arnold area, Hunt & Sons, the greater San Andreas area, but this is not the sum total of what we expend. So it's more than bookkeeping, but it is not short-circuiting, again, Public Contracts Code or the purchasing authority of the Public Works Director or the CAO. And it's to make our lives easier day to day. Questions?
Yeah. Thank you, sir. I'm glad to see the Public Works thinks $550,000, just a little Mickey Mouse, and it takes a long walk to get somebody from there to here to talk to you. What bothers me is not as much as the money. Past years, somebody got a monopoly in this county, folks. Let's get real. And $550,000, I don't know anybody else, but to me, it's a lot of money. If you want to have $550,000 in here, don't name the vendor. Don't give the vendor, your Public Works been giving a monopoly to certain companies. This is a blank check to one company. BS. $550,000, maybe I'm not questioning the reason that they're going to spend. I'm sure Public Works will find a way to spend it. But there's going to be some discussion later on today. I don't see how you're going to put a fix into one particular company for $500,000 that they don't have to come back to you. And I'm sure they will spend it. $500,000, one specific company you approve right now, to me it doesn't sound that kosher, folks. It stinks. There's more to it, and you know it's more to it. Maybe they can get away with it just slipping it in. No. As far as I'm concerned, I'm just a dumb foreigner, I know nothing. But I don't like it when you put the fix into one company that is in, let's put it this way, in a moldable situation right now that you're going to be talking about pretty soon. Thank you. That's my problem. $500,000, not Mickey Mouse money.
George Fry, I can't help but speak on this. You 5 board members picked Jeff to do this job, and I think so far he's been really outstanding in terms of being the Public Works Director. He's gotten a lot of projects moved along, and you back him and support him, and my interactions with him certainly show that he's an honorable person, and I don't for a minute believe that he's going to do the kind of thing that Race is talking about. Thank you.
Any further questions from the board on this item?
Director Krovitz, I do have a question. What if this were adjusted a little bit, and not to take your authority away in authorizing the expenditures, but instead of listing a vendor, it said, you have the authority to purchase ACAB rock and related road maintenance materials, and you use it, whoever the best price is at the time. Does that cause more grief? I understand what they're saying, and I'm certainly not trying to limit what you do, maybe even expand it.
It's almost as if we're speaking to 2 different concepts here. One which is an open and transparent methodology of expending public funds on public works. And another one really is more dealing with large single contracts. While this is a blanket purchase order, for example, to George Reed, who happens to be one of the local suppliers of this specific type of material, this could represent hundreds of different purchase orders throughout the year on roads throughout the counties and within the community service areas. Okay? And it's more a methodology, knowing that I'm going to use approximately this amount of material from this particular vendor, and that this particular vendor is competitive with out-of-county providers. It allows us to do the work more efficiently without having to bring 120 items in front of you for verification that I've met public contracts code. This also meets public contracts code. It also meets county purchasing policy. And so I do not believe, nor would I allow the Public Works Department to circumvent public contracts code, open, transparent transactions. And so to me, this is an open and transparent transaction, what we are telling you. And should any member of the public wish to come and purvey our records and look for the number of purchase orders, the amount, and where they were expended throughout the county in last year, and what we're planning on doing next year, we're open to that. I feel if you're trying to limit the amount, because say a $550,000 blanket purchase order with one vendor within the county for the purchase of asphalt base or aggregate asphalt concrete to be expended in hundreds of projects throughout the county, by lowering that, it hurts your ability to process items as well as hurts Public Works' ability to process the maintenance and operation, regular type of work that we do. So,
So it wouldn't help things if we...
It's not going to help things. It will make it worse. And these specific items that we've got are the aggregate of those types of items. It's not the whole piece of it.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah,
and
I appreciate your answer.
And we do shop for price. We always shop for price.
I know you do. We've had conversations firsthand. So.
Well, and think of it the other way. If you came up and said, hey, we want a $550,000 purchase order, not to exceed, by the way, for aggregate, that's not very open and transparent at that point, so somebody would probably ask more details on that. And so at least this is, and there's other vendors out there, and if you get to a point where you're going to exceed what you are approved through them, you'll be back with those particular businesses as well, I'm pretty sure, right?
This is our best guess through this fiscal year.
And I'm pretty sure that the way you come up with this, all of these figures actually, is by projecting out your jobs for the year and your usage in the past, and it's based on history and what you're going to do in the future, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So it's not to exceed. That's the key point right there. Go ahead, Mike.
If we end up with an emergency and we are over budget within our purchasing authority, we come back to the board.
Right.
That's good. In your issuing of blanket purchase orders, is there a procedure that is used to determine the best possible purchase price based on quantity?
Yes. We shop it before we purchase everyone.
I understand. So if you would go to Hunt & Sons and say, look, we're going to be looking at using maybe 200,000 gallons of diesel fuel for operation versus $100,000 of diesel fuel. Is it a common practice for that vendor to give you a better price than 200,000 based on in comparison to 100,000?
Absolutely. We purchase our fuel, both diesel and gasoline, at a lower rate than the public does.
Business 101, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about competition. Is it your opinion, and opinion probably of Business 101, competition drives better bargain prices.
Yes.
So competition is good for counties and cities and municipalities.
As well as the citizens.
Thank you.
Any other public comments?
Make a motion to approve.
I second the motion.
Okay, so we have a motion by Supervisor Ponte to approve the blanket purchase order for Public Works, and a second by Supervisor Kearney. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's 5-0. Okay. And we'll move on to our, oh, we have number 8, huh? Or 9. Oh, we approved that, yeah. Okay, so we'll move on to our regular agenda. And the first item on the regular agenda is the Building Department is recommending the board to introduce, after a waiver of the reading requirements, the attached ordinance adopting the amendments to Title 15 related to inclusion of Chapter 15.04.060 amendments to include the solar ordinance. The Building Department is also requesting the board to authorize the publication of a summary notice pursuant to Government Code Section 25124B1.
Good morning, Jeff White from the Building Department, building official. I want to say that it's nice to see the board chambers loaded here for our solar ordinance today. Maybe.
I was thinking the same thing.
I thought it was on the dental care.
The deadlines.
Yeah,
the deadlines.
Anyway, this is an introduction of an ordinance that was State Law Assembly Bill 2188, which was passed and given to us as through the California Government Code 658505. And essentially what it means is that all jurisdictions, state, county, cities, or cities and county jurisdictions will have an ordinance in place that streamline the permitting for residential solar photovoltaic systems on rooftop, small rooftop installations, which are 30 kilowatt in size or smaller. So it's a state mandated ordinance that the jurisdictions are required to have in place by September 30th. So here we are with the attempt to get the ordinance through. I do have some copies of the ordinance that I can hand you, and
yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have, okay,
There was a slight glitch and it was not included in the board agenda packet that you have on your iPads through IQM2.
It's not in the packet.
It didn't make it in the packet, so I brought hard copies. So I think we can survive that with the introduction portion of this. If you're interested in reading the Assembly Bill 2188, it's online. You can look up that, find it online, and it'll give you all the information about that. Essentially, the streamlining of rooftop solar 30 kilowatt or less is, I think they're aiming for the design of these to facilitate heating, water heating, and for water heaters as well as swimming pools, that sort of thing, which is all makes sense. And the goal, I don't know what date the goal is to be satisfied by the state, but they're looking for 1 million rooftop solars in the near future. So that's not in our county, of course, but it'll throughout the state. It's not much different. It's not much different from what we're doing now. It's we do expedite these smaller rooftop solar submittals. So there's a few changes in the law that requires that if you deny
the existing law says if you deny an application or a submittal, you have 60 days to return in writing the reason for the denial. This law changes it to 45 days, but typically we don't have that much of a need to go that far into the calendar on returning any denials.
Do you see solar on the increase?
I'm sorry?
Do you see solar in this county on the increase?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's really becoming quite the busy industry. And of course, it's the California Constitution requires the state to reimburse local agencies and school districts for certain costs mandated by the state. Statutory provisions establish procedures for making those reimbursements. This bill would not provide for reimbursements from the state.
We didn't get it to begin with, did we?
This point of interest.
Sounds good.
Okay, so I'm going to ask the board if you want to take action on this now, or should we wait until maybe after lunch where we have a little time to look it over a little more, because I'm not familiar with the ordinance, to tell you the truth. And I don't think the public is. I think it'd be a really great idea to leave some copies out there, let them mill it over, because I would like public comments on it. I know you got one, Peter, but there's a bunch of people out here that doesn't. So
yeah, I made 20 copies, so the balance of what is left, or if you're done reading them, could be.
So we can post a couple outside maybe, and if folks are interested, they can take a look at it. What do you think? I'll leave it up to the board, but that's just my thoughts.
We could give the public time to read it.
Sure. Debbie?
Sure.
Yeah.
We're just introducing the ordinance today, though. We're not approving the ordinance.
Right.
Just the introduction of.
Introduction.
So even if it wasn't included in our board packet and those don't review it today, still have a 45-day opportunity to review the ordinance and comment.
Will that ordinance be made available to the public then, in that 45-day period, or
It is. We will post it online. What happened is with IQM2, we determined that because there's an introduction phase of the ordinance and then an adoption phase of the ordinance, it needs to go on the agenda initially as an action item with the ordinance attached. In this case, it was, and then the following board meeting, when it comes back for adoption, the ordinance is actually included as part of the packet, not as an attachment. So what happened was, with this particular board packet, it was included as part of the board packet and not as an attachment. The system did not recognize it as such because of the category and action items, so it didn't come forward. So we can post with the proposed ordinance on the website, and it will be included in when it comes back to the board for adoption.
All right, in that case, I think what I'll do is I'll ask public comments and see what they think. If we can move on it now, it will be brought back to the board as an ordinance that will be publicly noticed. It'll be with the board packet, and then we'll be voting on it then. Right now, we're just voting to move it forward.
Okay, so you're ready for some public comments on the issue? Okay.
Okay, public comments on this? Should we go ahead and act on this now, because it's going to come up again as an action item to approve an ordinance? And right now, what we have is basically introducing the ordinance, and we could do that today. It's going to come back up again, or we could wait till after lunch, let's say, to follow through with introducing the ordinance. And I'll leave. I want to hear public comments on that. What do you think we should do?
Move on it.
Okay. Thanks for your quick response there, George. Any other public comments?
I usually don't like to get involved on personal, individual issue, or my own personal issues. But there's a couple of things that you might want to consider also additional, and I went just through it. My BP solar panels, and I have a few, was replaced because the heat generated with a solder melted. Okay? That's minor detail, but they did it quietly and they replaced it more efficiently. So there's when you put a black thing on a roof, that's going to create heat. And that's going to affect, I didn't see anything on here that will correct it. I also know that in the future you're going to be getting through that rooftop's got to be white. So reflect the heat. I know there's a lot of geniuses in Sacramento, but which one is correct? Okay? Now, I don't know where it came from, who's sponsoring it, but for what it's worth, as far as solar panel goes, will the customer, the clients, still be able to take those solar panels if and when they move? Because they got away from that. My solar panels are mine. When I boogie out of here, I'm going to take it with me. But the new system is totally different. So I like to have some answers to that, so consider it, okay?
Right,
and the safety and health.
So what we're asking is should we, because this is introducing an ordinance.
Right.
And then when it becomes an actionable item, which will come up soon, that's when we'll probably go through all of the questions.
That we're going to be paying for the administration of it. We ain't got a nickel back from, definitely not from PG&E, and we're not going to get a nickel back from Sacramento Heat too. Thank you.
Any other public comments? All right, so raise your hand if you want us to move on right now. We'll move forward. Thank you.
Again, I'd just like to bring up the fact that this is a state mandated ordinance to streamline the permitting process for issuing permits on 30 kilowatt systems or less. Okay. And the rest of the stuff is all inspections and plan review, and it's not really relevant to the need for the state's requirements for the ordinance.
Well, also, Jeff, we're not voting on the ordinance.
That's correct, yeah.
We're just recognizing that you're basically working on it and it's coming to us, right?
Correct, yeah. The ordinance is done now. It's in front of you, and Shirley explained what happened, but I just wanted to address the public comment concern.
Okay, so
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you.
I'll second.
So we have a motion by Supervisor Wright, second by Supervisor Ponte. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay. And we will make sure that the ordinance is posted on the agenda item.
And we'll post it prior to that on both the building department's website and the administrative office's website.
There you go. All right, thank you. All right, so let's move on to item number 11. Planning?
And I just wanted to briefly state that we have, I sat with the Planning Commission since I'm the designated land use attorney for the county. Normally Megan Stedfeld, our county counsel, sits with the board for these items. Because I sat with the lower hearing body, it's more appropriate for another attorney to be sitting with the board for the next two items. So I'm going to introduce Tiffany Wright from the law firm Remy Moose and Manley. She will sit with and advise the board through these next two items.
Thank you.
Welcome, Stephanie.
Chair, can we take a 10-minute recess?
Oh, yeah, we're going to take about a 10-minute break.
I knew it easy.
All right, so I'd like to move on regular agenda to item 11, planning. And this is an appeals hearing, so I'm opening the appeals hearing. And I just want to explain a few things before we start. One, when you come up to the microphone, please don't grab it and try to adjust it. It makes a lot of noise on the recording. You'll be able to be heard because it actually is an omnidirectional mic. So if it seems like somebody can't hear you, just step a little closer. But if you grab it and move it around, it's just going to cause a bunch of distortion on the recording. Okay, and I think that we want to be clear as possible. Also, I'm going to explain the process here so that we know. Okay, so the staff is going to give a presentation, and the board at that time can question the staff. There'll be a presentation by the appellant. Presentations by members of the public shall be limited to 5 minutes for each person. 5 minutes for each person, and you can get up and speak one time. One time, okay? Summation and rebuttal by appellants, and they should get 15 minutes per each appellant. Staff, summation and rebuttal. Sir, rebuttal by member of the public. Again, one time. Is that ours?
Yeah, it's out there. Citizens adjusting.
And then we will, at that time, close the appeal hearing and then have board discussion, questions, and action. Okay? So there's a couple of things I want to mention. I know that you have these little signs out here. I am not going to say too much about them, but if they, I want you to be aware there are people in back of you and around you. And if you're, if I see that you're causing a disturbance of that, I will ask you to put them down and remove them. Okay? They aren't too big of signs, you know, like was a couple weeks ago we had like this big sign, 4x8. That wouldn't work real good. So I'm just asking you to be cognizant of the folks around you. If somebody's up here speaking, let them speak. They have a right to speak the whole amount of time that they're there. That's what we're here for. It's a public process, okay? I would like to keep our, you know, our oohs and ahs and disturbances to a minimum. It does nothing to help any situation out. So we want this to be a fair process for everyone, okay? And so at this time, I'm going to wait until our sound gets squared away. Get a little feedback there. Yeah, I'm ready.
Cliff, you might tell them there's room in here. You might tell them there is room in here to sit.
Yeah, they don't want to sit in here. Okay? All right, so we will begin with staff presentation. And Mr. Maurer, proceed, please.
Good morning, Peter Maurer, Planning Director. This is item 12 and 13, two separate appeals that are before you on determination by the Planning Commission on two separate actions. What I want to do is sort of combine the two to begin with to provide an overview history of where we got through the history of the process, and then go into the first appeal, which is the appeal by My Valley Springs on the Planning Commission's finding regarding the zoning. After the discussion and action on that item, then I'll turn it over to Brian Moss and Jason Batzer to discuss the authority to construct appeal. So with that, so as I said, there are two separate appeals here. One is by myvalleysprings.com, which is the appeal of the Planning Commission's action finding that an asphalt plant is a permitted use in the M2 zone. The other appeal is the appeal by Ford Construction and CB Asphalt that the issuance of an authority to construct, this is an air pollution permit, is a project as defined by CEQA and then subject to the provisions of that state law. As far as background, the for construction inquired to our department about whether or not an asphalt plant is a vested use at the Hogan Quarry. This was in late April. On the 30th, I found that, based on my reading of the zoning ordinance, that it is a permitted use in the zone, and we did not make a decision regarding the vesting status. May 14th, the myvalleysprings.com appealed that determination, and it was heard by the Planning Commission on June 25th. The Planning Commission continued that action for a final determination to July 9th, where we brought back a resolution that the Planning Commission adopted that upheld the determination by me that the use is permitted. And then on July 23rd, My Valley Springs appealed that determination. And it's now before you. Similar timeline with the authority to construct. On May 18th, the Air Pollution Control District received an application for the asphalt plant from CB Asphalt at the Hogan Quarry. On May 29th, the Air Pollution Control Officer determined that the ATC is a project and subject to CEQA. Ford appealed that, and it was heard on July 9th by the Planning Commission upholding the APCO's determination that it is a project, and that was appealed and is now before you. The issues raised in the zoning appeal by the appellant are essentially three: that they do not agree that the asphalt plant is a use permitted by right. They also believe that the asphalt plant at the Hogan Quarry requires a revision to or the issuance of a new mining use permit for that site. And I'll go into the discussion of this in more detail. And also the operating asphalt plant requires an amendment to the reclamation plan, which was approved for the mining operation. I got to the determination for the zoning based on review of the history. In determining whether or not a use is permitted by right in a zone, or what's required for a use in any zone district, the first thing you do is you look at the zoning. Is it clear? Is it something clearly that states that this use is permitted or this use requires a conditional use permit? And in many cases, it's quite clear. A retail use that sells antiques is a permitted use in the commercial zone. A dispensary requires an administrative use permit in the professional office zone. Those rules are very clear. It was not clear whether or not an asphalt plant was permitted or required a conditional use permit or not allowed at all in the M2 zone. So we then went back and looked at the, I looked at the various provisions of our code. The M1 zone allows a concrete mixing and batch plant, ready mix, as a use permitted by right in the M1 zone. The M2 zone then refers to all of those uses that are allowed in the M1 zone are also allowed unless it's listed under another code section in the M2 that clearly spells out that it requires a use permit. I looked at the list of uses that would require conditional use permit, and the closest that would come to an asphalt plant, and this is the contention of the appellants, that use fits under the provision of petrochemical drilling, manufacturing, processing, packaging. The term asphalt plant was not used at all under a list of uses in our zoning code. In any district, it's not listed. So that left me with a bit of a dilemma. How does it actually fit in? So the next thing you need to do, if it's not clear, is you go to the legislative history. And we went back to the first zoning ordinance that we had adopted in 1961, where an asphalt plant was listed as a permitted use, along with a concrete plant. Those were permitted uses in the industrial zone when we first adopted zoning in the county in 1961. In 1978, the ordinance was essentially we rescinded the old ordinance, adopted a new one, and ready-mix plants were required by conditional use permit in the light industrial zone, and then it said, any use other than those listed were permitted in the heavy industrial zone. It's just ready-mix plants. It doesn't differentiate between concrete or asphalt, and part of the debate is, what does ready-mix actually mean? The ordinance was again adopted, or again revised in 1986, and ready-mix was replaced with the term concrete mixing and batch plant, ready-mix, which was permitted in the M1 zone, and the M2 zone had the general provision that anything allowed in the M1 was allowed in the M2, and that's the way the ordinance stands today as far as permitted uses. So I had to go back and say, well, what was the intent of the board when they made those changes? Was it intent that asphalt plants were to be included in the general description of ready-mix, or was it intended to be separate? Because asphalt plant wasn't listed anywhere, I didn't believe that it was the intent of the board to outright prohibit an asphalt plant in the county anywhere, because it's not listed. And it seemed to make more sense to me that the intent of the board was to include asphalt and concrete in the term ready-mix when they made the ordinance change back in 1978. The history of permitting sort of bears that out. Over the years, there have been several proposals for asphalt plants. In some cases, they were required to have a conditional use permit because of the zoning. There have been several instances where prior planning directors have determined that asphalt plant was allowed either under existing mining operations because of the way the use permit for those mines were established, or because of the zoning, the M2 zoning. Prior planning directors also believed that that was a use permitted by right. There's somewhat of a side issue. Well, no, I won't go now. So again, that was the determination that I had made at the time, was that I believed that the legislative history bore out the fact that it was not the intent of the board to prohibit asphalt plants, but that it was to include asphalt and concrete in sort of a general ready-mix description of that type of industrial activity. Hogan Quarry predated our requirements for a mining use permit, also predated the requirements under state law, the Surface Mining and Reclamation Act, and SMARA. So they have a vested right as a mining operation to mine. Now, we did in 1990 process a mining use permit as a vehicle to establish a reclamation plan. SMARA requires that even pre-existing mines all have a reclamation plan. But that plan and the permit is limited to reclamation activities only. It does not restrict any of the uses as long as it's a continued mining operation. And again, prior directors have also made that same determination that the mine is a legal non-conforming use and can continue mining operations. As far as the reclamation plan, there is provisions in state law that lay out very clearly when a revision to the reclamation plan is required. There are five provisions that need to be satisfied, and I've listed these here on the slide. One, that will not increase the surface area or depth of mining. Nothing that the asphalt plant would do would modify what is allowed to be mined. Will not extend the termination date of the mining activity. Again, the asphalt plant would not change that in any way. It would not affect the end use of the site. The use is zone industrial. Having an asphalt plant on the site would not change that potential industrial use or any future industrial use on the site. And the change is consistent with previous environmental documentation. The CEQA document was prepared for the reclamation plan. The CEQA document for the reclamation plan was limited to reclamation and what effects reclamation would have. It did not address the mine itself. because the mine was determined to be legal, non-conforming, and pre-existing. And finally, that there were no other substantial changes to the reclamation requirements. There's nothing that the asphalt plant would do that would require any additional reclamation. So in our opinion, we do not find that a reclamation plan revision is required associated with this proposal. So our recommendation to you is that you adopt the resolution that's contained in the board package that upholds the Planning Commission's finding that an asphalt plant is a permitted use in the M2 General Industrial Zone. That the plain language of the ordinance does not support a determination that the use is permitted, but that the legislative history shows that it was the board's intent to permit asphalt plants in the M2 zone. Also make finding that adding an asphalt plant to the Hogan Quarry does not require a mining use permit or a revised reclamation plan. In the mine is a legal, non-conforming use, and no expansion of the mining operation is proposed, and that there would be no substantial deviation from the approved reclamation plan. Are there any questions you might have regarding this aspect of the appeals?
Questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
When you go back to the, like, what kind of interested in is you know, how you went back and looked at legislative intent. Now, is there like specific code on that, you know, like as far as what's allowed in different zones? You know, if it's not listed in the permitted uses, is it not allowed? Or is it kind of up to your discretion to determine that?
There is a provision in the code that allows the planning director to make a determination on uses that are similar to those that are listed. In several, there's two different provisions actually, and it depends on which zone it is. The commercial zone and those residential zones allow me to make that determination. The industrial zones require that the planning commission make that determination. But that was not the finding that I made, was that it was a similar use. The finding I made was that it was contained within the provision of concrete mixing and batch plant ready mix.
Okay, and then as far as the state law goes, I mean, is there something in the law that says that you go back and look at the legislative intent and to determine if it's not specifically defined?
Right. That's a standard of statutory interpretation that would also apply to your zoning code.
Okay. And that's contained in the state law that gives him the authority to go back and kind of read the tea leaves and make that determination that it's not he's not saying it's a like use, he's saying it is in fact what they meant, even though it's not explicitly said.
Right. It's been explained by the courts that that's an appropriate way to interpret your code.
Okay. It's probably more case law than it is legislative.
Okay, sure. Yeah, thank you.
Do you know the termination date of their mining?
Off the top of my head, I don't. It's quite a bit in advance.
Long ways in the future.
100 years or something, or 50 years or something like that. It's a long way.
Mr. Maurer?
Yes.
Regarding background, ATC, on the 29th of 15th, it referenced the APCO, determined that the ATC is a project and subject to CEQA. That applies in this situation, and that's a recommendation of the APCO, is that correct?
That's correct, and that's a subject to the next appeal.
All right.
That's item number 13. I just want to have sort of the history out there in front.
And there's a follow-up question on the reclamation plan. Wow. It states that in that process, CEQA documents will be prepared for reclamation plan. In other words, they could actually do a CEQA document at that time, right?
Well, we did, the reclamation plan was approved back in 1990, and we did a CEQA document at that point in time.
So there's an existing CEQA document for this property as a mining operation.
For the reclamation.
For reclamation.
It's limited to just the reclamation. The mining operation itself was not required to go through CEQA because it predated our zoning ordinance that required a special permit for that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? So now we're going to have a presentation by the appellant.
Good morning, Chairman and Supervisors. My name is Andrew Grunman. I'm here on behalf of MyValleySprings.com and Joyce Teckle. I was going to give a little bit about the history, but I think Mr. Maher pretty much covered that. This appeal, we've raised two issues. The first, whether an asphalt plant is permitted use in both M1 and M2. And the second, which Mr. Maher bifurcated, was whether it requires mining use plan or amendment to the existing reclamation plan. I want to concentrate on the first issue. That's the important issue. In Mr. Maher's, Director Maher's letter of April 30, 2015, he concluded that an asphaltic concrete batch plant or hot plant is permitted at the quarry. In plain language, asphalt is not concrete. This is a flawed conclusion. It should not be allowed in either zone pursuant to section 1742.020. That states simply concrete mixing in batch plant, comma, ready mix, as we've had up there. When we appealed this to the Planning Commission, they erred when they assumed the word concrete included both concrete and asphalt, or what came up in the conversation there was asphaltic concrete. The language of the code itself proves the code recognizes a distinction between concrete and asphalt. I want to take a historical perspective, but first I want to have two important rules of statutory construction. Rule 1, removal of a term from a previous statute indicates exclusion of that term. Rule 2, a word absent from the statute cannot be added because it would be an enlargement of the statute, not a construction of it. In this case, under the prior code, the history of the code confirms the drafter's intent, meaning the supervisors, to exclude asphalt as a permitted use. The first zoning code in 1961, Ordinance 250, listed asphalt plant and cement manufacture as distinct and different uses in the M zone. Our current version includes concrete mixing, but it omits asphalt plant. That the supervisors removed a prior permissive right from the code, the current version confirms a purposeful exclusion of this. Although it may have been historically permitted, the supervisors omitted asphalt as a permitted use, which further clarified the supervisor's intent that asphalt would require a conditional use permit. This is not a matter that they don't want, that the supervisors did not want to have asphalt plants. They wanted a conditional use permit on it. We've got another rule of statutory construction that I think has been brought up, and it's simply, if a word's unknown, you go to a dictionary meaning. This was raised at the Planning Commission, and we spent a lot of time discussing what the meaning was. So I'm not going to argue about a precise description of what concrete is. I think we all know it. But I'll use a Wikipedia. Not a good source. It's kind of an average source so we have some understanding. And I'm not going to rely on the Wikipedia source, but I still want to read this. Concrete is a composite material composed of aggregate bonded together with a fluid cement which hardens over time. Most of the use of the term concrete refers to Portland cement concrete or to concretes made with other hydraulic cements such as cement Vindu. Now, just as was raised in the Planning Commission, it also says, however, technically road surfaces are also a type of concrete, asphaltic concrete, where the cement material is bitumen. The drafters of the code specifically meant for concrete not to include asphaltic concrete because the code distinguishes between the two. Mr. Maher's letter of April 30th says, more recent amendments to the code do not differentiate between the two. I beg to differ. The supervisors specifically state that on paved surfaces, the use of concrete as a material may be substituted with a different material, asphaltic concrete. We can go to section 17.70.050A. Concrete may be substituted for asphaltic concrete. Clearly, there's a difference. Clearly, the supervisors recognize the distinction. Further, the supervisors, who were the drafters of the code, meant to distinguish between asphalt and concrete. For example, Section 8.10.340 sub B sub 2 states, shall be provided with an asphalt or concrete surface. The supervisors recognize there's a difference between asphalt and concrete. They did not make a mistake. They did not intend to subsume asphalt within concrete and leave the rest of the code distinguishing it and separating it. Further, the code defines ready mix as concrete. 17.06.1590, ready mix means the mixing of batching of raw materials into concrete for delivery to job sites. And just as an aside, I want to mention here that the California Building Code does define concrete, and that definition does not include asphalt. It would not make sense to expand the definition of ready mix to also mean asphalt. It would make no more sense to expand the definition of concrete to include asphalt. It makes no more sense to expand the definition of concrete to asphaltic concrete. In fact, I'm going to show, for example, interpreting the code so that asphalt and concrete are interchangeable leads to some rather undesirable results. Surface sealing of water wells, 8.20.30. Surface seal means a monolithically poured concrete platform or pad. Let's just stop a second. And let's think about, can you even pour asphalt? Did the supervisors mean for this to be asphalt, or do you pour concrete? There's a distinction. And let's just further think about the purpose of a concrete well platform. First, it provides a watertight seal to prevent surface water and impurities from bacteria from contaminating the aquifer. Second, it provides stability to the casing to prevent motor vibration and also to essentially stop it from falling down a hole. I think there would be a distinct difference if we applied asphalt where it says concrete in that section of the code. Further, installation of water wells, 8.20.360. The well casing shall extend a minimum of 12 inches above the ground surface and a minimum of 6 inches above the concrete. We're mentioning concrete. I don't think they mean to use asphalt on water wells. In fact, if we're interpreting that way, you can use asphalt to seal your water well casing. 8.20.460, the concrete surface seal, describing the well casing seal on new wells. It gets a little stranger if you conclude that asphalt and concrete are the same material in section 12.02.210. That says if we interpret concrete to mean asphalt, that means you can use asphalt as box culverts. Concrete box culverts shall be designed to pass the 100-year flood without overtopping of the roadway. Now, if we continue in that same section, we'll see how ludicrous it is to say that asphalt and concrete are the same materials, because complete plans and design calculations for the culverts shall be included. I'm not really aware that asphalt has any structural strength. You could make asphalt sidewalks. Perhaps that would be desirable. I don't know. Section 12.02.270, concrete sidewalks. This one, however, I think just shows that asphalt and concrete are not the same in this county, and the drafters know it. Section 15.04.095, seismic evaluation and design of the wall anchorage system in reinforced concrete and reinforced masonry walls. Using this interpretation, it's apparently safe to construct occupied buildings and meet county and state building standards with asphalt instead of concrete. Further, we could put houses on asphalt pads. Section 15.06.020, pouring of concrete pads. Again, that pesky problem. Asphalt isn't poured. Mobile home parks can have asphalt roll curbs. Perhaps that's stylish up here. It says there shall be concrete roll curbs on each side of the street, but I guess it would also be permissible to use asphalt. As you can see, should the supervisors uphold the planning commissioner's ruling, they would be holding it as also permissible to seal wells with asphalt, put houses on asphalt pads, and construct buildings to seismic standards using asphalt. When redrafting the code, the supervisors intended to distinguish asphalt from concrete and knowingly removed it from the M1 and M2 zones. The fact that they knowingly removed the term asphalt from the code but left it intact in other sections, indicated they intended for asphalt plants to apply for a conditional use permit. And as a side note, there's almost 200 M1 and M2 parcels in this county. The county code, as drafted and approved by the supervisors, purposefully admitted asphalt as a permitted use. They distinguish between concrete and asphaltic concrete, and they also recognize concrete and asphalt as different materials. The code is clear. Asphalt is not a permitted use. Further, because an asphalt plant utilizes bitumen, a conditional use permit is required. Section 17.42030A15 requires approval and validation of a conditional use permit because it involves petrochemical processing. Because a conditional use permit is required, and because a conditional use permit is a discretionary design, secret review is also required. Should the board rule against My Valley Springs, they're not only placing this community at a substantial health and safety risk, they're also placing the county at a financial risk and having to defend the indefensible position that asphalt is concrete and that asphalt production requires no environmental review. Thank you. Any questions?
Not at this time.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to give presentations by the members of the public, and it's going to be limited to 5 minutes, please.
Mr. Chairman, just a question as to procedure. I represent the applicant. Will we have an opportunity separate from the public?
Yes.
So. Hi. Good morning. My name is Terry Bedoin, and I live in Valley Springs. My wife and I are 30-year residents of Valley Springs, have been active in the community and in the county for all 30, raised our kids here. About 12 years ago, my wife and I decided, looking toward retirement, where we wanted to spend the rest of our years. And we decided Valley Springs was a great place. We built a house up on a little ridge called Paradise Peak, which if you look at the map that was published, thanks to the folks from the Calaveras Enterprise, you can see pretty clearly where Paradise Peak is in relation to the hot batch asphalt plant.
Can I see that, please, sir?
Surely.
And Paradise Peak is where?
It's actually called out. It's very fine print.
It's the housing.
Just outside.
Yeah, the small development, just near the lake.
Right.
Okay, up on, okay, thank you.
Yeah. And so things have changed drastically in the 20 or 30 years that we've lived here. First of all, there was a reference made in this article here that this reminded somebody of people buying property or buying a house next to an airport, then complaining about the air traffic noise. My response to that is no, this was more like us buying property or building a house near a small municipal airport and then having 747s fly in every day, okay? So there are a lot of people here that are very, very concerned about the traffic, the effect that adding a hot batch asphalt plant that, as far as I've come to understand, will operate 24 hours a day. Okay, I've heard that there will be batch processing 2 a.m. in the morning. Whatever the contract for the road construction calls for. Okay, currently the quarry does not operate in the middle of the night. They typically start about 6 in the morning and then they end just about at dark. That's tough. We know when the winds are blowing eastward because all that dust from the quarry collects into that bowl. Of all the presentations that have been made here, Ford Construction did a very nice job of explaining how their whole layout works and the fact that they have a pit. But nobody has mentioned to you folks or the Planning Commission that if you take a step from my porch and look at the hot batch asphalt plant and the surrounding area, you are in a horseshoe-shaped bowl, okay? So even if the wind is blowing westward, you don't get a lot of that particulate matter leaving. It just kind of sits there until the eastward winds start blowing. So also in this article, a fellow by the name of Jerry Harvey made the comment that, let's see, Harvey said winds usually blow eastward and thus neighbors' fears are excessive. What is to the east of the quarry? Virtually nothing. Well, about 12 degrees northeast of the quarry and of the hot batch asphalt plant is my porch, okay? So I built the house there thinking that we would have a nice view of the lake and that we would have relatively clean air, because it is relatively clean except for the asphalt or the concrete dust that we get now from the quarry operation. So anyway, I'm pretty concerned that the air quality and the property value of my home are going to be adversely affected by this project. And the last thing I'd like to say is that it sure seems from sitting through 2 planning commission meetings and this one as well, that if you read all of this and look at all of the decision-making criteria, this was a coin toss, okay? This decision could have gone either way. And I asked you, the supervisors, please consider your own constituents that are telling you that this is going to affect the quality of life and the property value of my house. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Richard Enderlein. I'm a citizen of Calaveras County, and I want to first thank you for giving me the opportunity during the public comment period to actually convey the concern about this company who is breaking your code. They have not given you the opportunity to make your decision. They have already acted. You will see that in all this, there's storage, there's staging, there's assembly, there's operations, there's takedown, and then there's finally reclamation. Then we finally.
Which company is this, sir?
This is the Hogan Quarry. There is an asphalt plant in situ there now. Before you have even made your decision, there is an asphalt plant at the Hogan Quarry now. They're going to tell you they're storing it, but these are all processes along the process to get this approved. They store, they stage, they assemble, then they operate, then they tear down, then they reclaim. This is how it works. So they have already gone beyond storage. They have staged and they have assembled. But that is what I was talking about during the public comment period, because this is what I want to talk about here, is I want to talk about what the actual agenda item is. Because as I was sitting here, I don't know if anybody else heard it, but Mr. Maurer lied by omission. He misrepresented the appeal, because I'm going to read the number 11 on the Planning Commission appeal here, if I can get my glasses straight. Planning Department recommends that the board adopt a resolution denying the appeal by MyValleySprings.com of the Planning Commission's determination that an asphalt plant is permitted in the use in the M2 zone. You got that part, the general industrial zone. And then you'll notice that it says that no mining use permit is required. If Mr. Maurer, if you can please pull up the zoning appeal thing, it says right on there, it says, operating an asphalt plant requires an amendment to the reclamation plan. But if you'll notice above that, it says an asphalt plant at Hogan Quarry. This is him representing the appeal, says that requires a revision to and an issuance of a new permit. So this is the difference between requiring a new permit or do they need one at all. You see how he has misrepresented the appeal. And that's not even what I wanted to come up here and talk to you about. Because what I wanted to talk to you about is something completely different. And that's where it says that the reclamation plan for the Hogan Quarry is not required for the installation of the asphalt plant. So when I went to the proponents meeting the other day, and they kept saying that, well, CEQA law is redundant. They kept saying it over and over. They're saying that your codes, our laws, are redundant because they are going to get the approval from the state agencies. They're going to get approval from Fish and Wildlife. They're going to get approval from the EPA. But then nobody asked them, what is the process you are going to use to get those approvals? That's this. That's CEQA. CEQA is the process by which corporations get approval from state agencies. This is what you guys need to have. You need to have this documentation in order to make an informed decision. And so when we come back to the, whether they need a mining use permit, well, of course they're going to need one because CEQA says they do. The law, the state has come in and said, yes, you need this. You need this law. And this is the information the state says you need to make your decision, to make an informed environmental decision in the state of California. This is the process. This is the process that the company has to go through. Will I be allowed to comment on number 12? On agenda number 12, or should I make my comment on number 12 now?
It's a separate agenda. You'll be able to comment on it.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Marty Crane, and I live in District 5 off of Silver Rapids Road. As you know, I've attended every Board of Supervisor meeting and followed our community and county planning processes since 2002. I mention this because obviously I've made every effort to stay engaged and informed. If it had not been for an attorney in Sacramento notifying the folks at myvalleysprings.com that this controversial project was progressing through our system, no one outside the planning department and the Board of Supervisors would have known. Had My Valley Springs not then made this information public by successfully filing an appeal just before the deadline, for the community and affected neighbors, there would have been no opportunity for public input. As it is, we've had to scramble to find out exactly what the proposal was, who would be making what decisions, and wondering if the answers would be clearly defined in our county documents or open to discretion and interpretation. We had to quickly gather information from many sources, and thankfully, our community residents are a valuable source of expertise and county history. We had to pull together a community meeting that was attended by over 65 people on a Saturday afternoon. We wanted answers and an opportunity to share and gather as much accurate information as possible, and then make a plan moving forward to ensure that our voices would be part of the ongoing and final decision-making process. The following Tuesday evening, another community meeting was hosted by the project proponents. What was most striking to me was that the proponents did everything they could to convince us of things that they themselves contradicted within a few minutes of follow-up questions. Getting to the bottom line and the truth on different matters was due to the fact that open communication was encouraged, unlike the constraints of county government. If we are to make fully informed decisions, we must allow ourselves whatever time is needed for those revealing conversations. We have forgotten how to effectively communicate with one another and the value of exchanging ideas. Speaking as a member of the public, this is our community, our home. This is our government where the rules are determined by us. How can we possibly define and set those rules when the community has to constantly fight to be part of the critical conversations? When a project proponent presents before the Planning Commission or the Board of Supervisors, this is usually the first time the majority of the neighbors have heard about it. They attend a meeting at the Planning Commission or the Board of Supervisors. They listen to a presentation that was fully prepared in advance, many times by paid staff, experts, and attorneys. And then with no timely opportunity to research and rebut the points they find questionable, the public is expected to sit by and accept as fact what is being presented. What we learned from the two community meetings was critical and must be folded into the decision-making. Much of that has been provided to you, some of which should inspire more questions and require substantiated answers. Finally, there is no dispute that toxic chemicals will be used in the process, released into the air and transported over our roadways. This fact has been marginalized, misrepresented, and finally acknowledged by the proponent, and it requires CEQA review. There is also no dispute that asphalt plays a big role in our communities. We encourage and assist our seniors to age gracefully and remain in their homes as long as is safely possible. Many of our residents have various serious health issues. Some are on oxygen and struggle for each and every breath. At this very moment, they are doing that. Where we place these toxic plants is critical. What's left of the public trust is at stake. Thank you.
Thank you. My name's Bonnie Newman, and you know I don't live in that exact area. I live on Double Springs, but I feel the pain. I moved here in 1974, and when we were selecting property, we drove all over the county. We looked out at Rancho, and we thought, oh my God, it's like a desert with hills. There's rattlesnakes. It looked like a hellhole. Why would anybody want to live out there when they could buy a piece of property on Double Springs that has springs coming out of the ground? Well, those poor suckers, there's a whole bunch of them living out there. Who benefited? Some land speculators, some developers. They're rich. They got a condo in Hawaii now, but those poor suckers are living out there. They can't flush their toilet because it's going to run in their neighbor's garage. Can't drink the water because it stinks and it tastes bad. Now they ain't going to be able to breathe out there because there's just going to be toxic pollutants in the air. People are already talking about moving, and how valuable is their property going to be at that point? I live in a little piece of paradise, and I can imagine if someone came to threaten my little piece of paradise, I'd be up in arms. I'd have roadblocks on each block. I'd be as snipers on every hillside taking out people just because I'm passionate about, and I can't say I don't own that land. I pay taxes on that land. I have a deed of trust. Nobody owns land. You have the right to live in a place where somebody lived before you, and hope to God somebody's going to be able to live in that place after you. That's our responsibility as property owners. We have a deed of trust. We have responsibilities. We pay taxes, and we become stewards of that land so that it can be there for future. As we know, hundreds and thousands of years ago, people walked on this earth right where we are, and they had a way of sustaining the property, the planet, so that it could be here for us today to talk about building an asphalt plant in the middle of where a bunch of people live. A suggestion was made, if these industries are so interested in Calaveras County, they can build a road out the backside so this pollutant isn't driven right down the center of our streets where we live. That's a solution. The other solution is, let's truck our gravel that is so valuable to where they want to mix it, where it already stinks, another place up. There's a lot of solutions. We're not against industry or growth or progress, but it's got to be sensible. It can't just be helter-skelter, oh, we're going to get 10 more jobs. 400 people are going to move out of the county because now we smell just like the Bay Area. Thank you for your time. Think about it very carefully. I live in Calaveras County because it ain't LA. That's why I moved here. Thank you.
I'm Brock Estes. I live on Laurent Lane, directly across from the quarry. It was my suggestion initially that we try and come to a compromise and put the batch plant out by the dump. I withdraw that suggestion now. Now that I'm having to reach into my pocket to spend money, I'm not in the mood to compromise. I've given you each a packet. I'll get to only some of it here. It's baseball season. Think of yourselves as umpires handling the video reviews in a room in New York. The ump on the field makes his best effort, but sometimes he gets it wrong, and you were there to either support the call or change it. People once thought this would never work. because they're all in the same umpires union. They won't want to say, you are correct, Manager Bocci, our guy got it wrong this time. But in fact, a lot of calls are overturned, and the game is better for that change. Concrete mixing and batch plant ready mix. That's all you've got to look at. You don't see asphalt there. It's singular, isn't it? In Mr. Moore's letter of 4/30/15, he says, paragraph 2, sentence 2, previous county codes referred to both asphalt batch plants and concrete plants. Note that those words were used in the plural. Everyone knows the difference between what we call asphalt and what we call concrete, which is really Portland cement concrete. One is dark and odorous, made with petroleum. The other is light, has no smell, and is made with water. One is no longer permitted, since asphalt was removed from the code at about the time a neighborhood was built across the street from the quarry. The other, Portland cement concrete, is still permitted, as it would produce no negative effects to the homeowners or their outdoor active children. If you doubt that, you can call the overseeing agency, as I did. It's the Mine Safety and Health Administration at 707-447-9842, and ask that question. Ask them if ready mix is ever used with asphalt or if it is only used with concrete, and they will tell you, never have we ever heard it used with asphalt. You could also contact Phil Blankenship at the Asphalt Institute in Kentucky, as I did, and he will tell you exactly the same thing. He also added that the term concrete itself, as a term of art, means only solid. If the words ready mix were not there, and it was plural, then you could attempt to say it really means asphalt also. But those two little words doom you to failure when this finally gets before a judge. As I told the Planning Commission, my background is in arbitration, and there's one thing that all arbitrators agree on. If one party attempts to use devious tactics, such as deliberately misstating facts, and is exposed, the arbitrator is going to look at every other point that side makes with a healthy dose of skepticism. If you approve this expansion and something goes wrong with Stockton's water supply, you will be placing the taxpayers of this county at great risk. But Ms. Kinderman told us that nothing could possibly go wrong. I'm not saying she's outright lying, because as an officer of the court, she's not allowed to outright lie. But I'm going to use the words fudging and whoppers in the rest of my written submission, which comes with exhibits that provide documentation as to my conclusion that Mrs. Kinderman has been playing fast and loose with the truth at every step in this process. I've given you a packet with 5 written examples, and also examples of how Mr. Tuno misstated the facts in his 6-minute presentation on 6/25/15, of which I am focusing on his South Lake Tahoe example. But because my time is limited, I must move to my summation concerning the ethical improprieties committed by Commissioner Tuno on that date. The bigger point is Commissioner Tuno should not have been doing such outside research. There's a California case from 1997. It's Matthews Zahari Corporation versus New Motor Vehicle Board. And it says as follows: ex parte communications lead to a deprivation of a fair hearing when an administrative body utilizes evidence outside the record to reach a conclusion. Minute?
30 seconds.
30 seconds. Commissioner Tuno never should have conducted outside research on his own to sway other commissioners based on evidence they did not have before them, and that the parties to the appeal had no way to contest at the hearing. This is a violation of the due process rights of the parties to the appeal. Now that we have provided the board with accurate evidence, we hope that you will cure this due process violation by rejecting the Planning Commission's tainted interpretation of the zoning code. Simply overturn the bad call. Thank you. If anyone wants it, I've got it.
Well said.
My name is Laura Most, and I reside in Rancho Calaveras. I'd like to introduce myself because I haven't been to the board in a long time. A lot of you older board members knew me. I came quite often. But my name's Laura Most. I moved to Rancho Calaveras from Tracy, California in 2000. My husband and I relocated because we wanted to get out of the fog and the smog and move into a more rural area. We chose Rancho Calaveras My husband is a licensed contractor. He worked in construction all of his adult life, 20 years in bridge construction and 30 years in the housing industry. In 2013, he was diagnosed with COPD and congestive heart failure. His pulmonary doctor said that his illness was because of all the years working around the building materials. He is on oxygen 24/7. I was a licensed real estate agent for several years in Tracy. We reside at Ferris Drive, close to Highway 26. I oppose the proposed asphalt plant at the Hogan Dam Quarry because of many reasons. We, as the residents of the community, were not notified. Not even Stockton East District was notified. They turned in their appeal, but it was late, so their money was returned. Mr. Moody, the general manager of Stockton East Water District, stated in a declaration that he heard about the proposed asphalt plant at Hogan Dam Quarry on the evening news. We, the residents, heard about the proposed asphalt plant in a flyer in the Valley Springs News, along with an article in myvalleysprings.com, upset asphalt parts delivered to quarry, dated May 22nd, 2015. Here are some of my concerns: the air quality, the water safety, increased truck traffic, and there's no general plan now. The health issues. I'm having to make it short because I have emailed all of you, and thank all of you for responding to me. I appreciate that. Dr. Estoesta, who was the previous medical director of Mark Twain St. Joseph's Hospital and Clinic from 1999 to 2003, and now is a full-time primary physician serving Valley Springs and the neighboring communities, has a no to the proposed asphalt plant petition in his office. Dr. Estoesta's letter is enclosed with my presentation, stating that he is very concerned about his patients who will be breathing the toxic chemicals in the air. He goes into detail, but for limited time, his letter is included for the record. He says, for our known patients with chronic obstruction, lung disease, bronchial asthma, congestive heart failure, and primary lung disease, these toxic pollutants will quadruple their frequency of wheezing, shortness of breath, difficulty of breathing, coughing to all group age, but in particular could damage the lungs of our young children doing their outdoor sporting events and physical education classes outside their classroom. This will be aggravated, established lung and heart patients for more frequent intensive hospitalization. As these known medical diseases aggravated by toxic pollutants have been substantiated in various medical and occupational textbooks and journals, the U.S. Department of Human Services has a full display of medical literature concerning asphalt plant pollution. In closing, I am enclosing an article entitled "Asphalt Proposal Draws Complaints from Neighbors in Santa Rosa" in the Wall Street Journal dated August 15, 2012. But many residents in the surrounding West End neighborhood saw the project would allow Bodine to increase its production rate up to threefold, exaggerating what they would call as a long-running problem of dust, noise, and obnoxious fumes. The hardest part is the smell, says Sarah Curing, 37, an event consultant who lives across the street from the plant with her husband, Tyler, and their two small children. I describe it as something tarring a roof inside my house, to the point even my 4-year-old complains of the smell and headaches. Thank you. I have copies for all of you. I was up till 4 o'clock this morning getting all these for you.
Ma'am, was those included in your email?
Pardon?
Was those included in your email too?
Yes, it is. And Dr. E's letter's in there too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. We still have a few moments of morning left. My name is Janice Bassett, and I live in Valley Springs. I'm an asthma sufferer, and I live 1/2 mile downwind from the proposed asphalt plant. The asphalt plant, of course, is already assembled, so every time I look out at my deck, I am filled with concern and worry about what my future holds as far as the effects on my health. At the community meeting that we hosted on July 25th at the event center, we asked the question, there was about 65 people there, who in this room has respiratory issues or has a member of their household with respiratory issues. 22 people raised their hand. That's a third of the people that were there. One of the most disturbing aspects of this whole project is how it is unfolded, with the complete disregard of our process by our representatives. If not for the pure lack of pure luck, the information got to my Valley Springs, who then alerted the rest of the community. We would have seen an asphalt plant already in production. We'd be waking up one morning, what is that smell? What are all these trucks doing, going through our neighborhood? What's going on here? And it would have already been too late because we would have missed the opportunity. After reading about the asphalt plant in the paper, I contacted District 1 supervisor, and I asked him, so is the asphalt plant a done deal? And he said, well, now there are petitions filed, so there will be hearings. He then informed me that every argument that he had seen against the asphalt plant was based on completely false information. When I expressed my concern about the proximity to my home, his response was, well, just what kind of industry would you people welcome in our community? I took his answer as a suggestion that I was wrong to be concerned and that I did not appreciate efforts to bring jobs and revenue into our county. I received no indication that he had any concern in the interest of my health or the health of my neighbors. Later, I contacted my own supervisor. I asked him just when in this process were the people going to have an opportunity to weigh in. He told me to ask Brian Moss and to be sure to go to the meetings. I then told him that all I knew about the asphalt plant is what I had recently read in the papers. And it looked to me like the residents were being left out of the process. And he said, you can't believe what you read in the papers. I don't read the newspapers because I only deal with facts. But he shared no facts with me. Once again, I was dismissed by my own elected representative. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. My name is Lou Mayhew. I wanted to just make a couple of comments. One, early on, after reading the staff report, I concluded that Mr. Maurer's decision was unfortunate. It was really not supported by the legislative record, and that at best, the most you could say is that that record was ambiguous. And if it's ambiguous, then it would really behoove you to default in the favor of finding it got left out of the code, asphalt plants or mixed plants. And in doing so, essentially favor residents who live in the area. It would be a concern for the river and other issues. After hearing the earlier presentation by the appellant's attorney, it seems to me the code really does have a number of, it's threaded with references to concrete, which do not make any reference to asphalt. So I don't know what you do with that, but I thought it was pretty powerful. In any event, if it's ambiguous or simply prohibited, that's an oversight of the code. And I don't think you should resolve that in the favor of, and I think this is important, making it a permitted right countywide in M1 and M2 zones. I don't think you understand the implications of that. I haven't heard those discussed. Where are those parcels? Is it appropriate? Because once you make that decision, you can't go back. So I hope you don't make that decision. I think something for later discussion is the county process that allows the planning director to make this kind of sweeping decision that affects parcels, similarly zoned parcels, countywide with no public notice. I think that is simply a bad procedure, and in the future really needs to be revised. So in sum, I think a mistake was made by the planning director. It was sustained by the planning commission, and I think you need to correct that. I hope you are not counting on the following agenda item to require some kind of a review. I think that would be unfortunate, because what you would have done as your first step was make asphalt plants a permitted use countywide in those zones, and that would stand, and I think that would be an unfortunate decision. Thank you.
Tom Infacino, Calaveras Planning Coalition. First, on behalf of the coalition, I would like to thank every business in Calaveras County that has applied for a use permit and has followed its conditions. Because of these businesses, neighbors and businesses throughout Calaveras County coexist in productive harmony. These businesses have balanced their interests with those of their neighbors, and for this we thank them. We hope that you supervisors will overturn the Planning Commission decision that an asphalt plant is allowed by right in the M1 and M2 zones. We believe that a common sense, plain meaning, clear and straightforward interpretation of the zoning code helps everyone comply. Asphalt plants should be considered, quote, mineral extraction, processing, and milling, unquote, and mineral extraction and production, unquote, which require a use permit in both the M1 and M2 zones. This is consistent with their need for a use permit to address hazardous materials. Furthermore, the use permit process gives planning commissioners and supervisors alike a constructive opportunity to balance the interests of the project's applicants with those of the project's neighbors. Finally, let's review the visits we have had from Abbott and Kinderman over the last several years. First, they advocated for allowing golf courses in the ag zone by right, so that their one client could keep his 18-hole olive orchard. The Board of Supervisors then did not buy it. Second, they advocated allowing outdoor shooting ranges by right without use permits and environmental review, so their one client could build a shooting range without a permit. The Board of Supervisors then did not buy it. Now, they want you to allow asphalt plants in the M1 and M2 zone by right without use permits and environmental review, so their one client can build his asphalt plant without a permit. As the sitting Board of Supervisors, you should not buy this last scheme to turn our zoning code upside down. Other mineral processing operations have gotten use permits. Now it's Ford's turn. Thank you and God bless.
Joyce Teckle, myvalleysprings.com. I'm going to start reading addresses. 1191 Limbaugh Road, Arnold, California, zoned M1. 1470 Limbaugh Road, Arnold, California, zoned M1. 1145 Dunbar Road, M1. 1301 Limbaugh Road, M1. 1241 Dunbar Road, M1. There's several more from Arnold. I'm going to move down to Valley Springs now. 2400 Double Springs Road, M1. 3601 Double Springs Road, M1. 2918 Highway 12, M1. That's in San Andreas. 5476 Highway 12, Wallace, M1. 5475 Highway 12, Wallace, M1. 223 Baker Street, Copperopolis, M1. 110 Lone Dove Lane, Murphy's, M1. 969 Highway 4, Murphy's, M1. Now we're moving to M2. 4784 Old Gulch Road, San Andreas, M2. 3371, Highway 12, Valley Springs. 3466, Highway 12, Valley Springs. 3466, Highway 12, Valley Springs. 3474, Toyon Circle, Valley Springs. 3304, Highway 12, Valley Springs. 135, Vista Drive, Valley Springs. 3463, Double Springs Road, M2. 746, Pool Station Road. 806, Pool Station Road. 928, Pool Station Road. 2286, Pool Station Road. 2288, Pool Station Road. 1250, Pool Station Road. 1765, Pool Station Road. All in San Andreas, all M2. 680, Churchill Road, San Andreas. 714, Churchill Road. 746, Churchill Road. 780, Churchill Road. 812, Churchill Road. 846, Churchill Road. These are all M2. 968, Churchill Road. Set 2171, Pool Station Road. 924, Churchill Road. 1845, Pool Station Road, San Andreas. 1951, Pool Station Road. 1775, Pool Station Road. 1811, Pool Station Road. 178, Wendell Court, San Andreas. 160, Wendell Court. 140, Wendell Court. 116, Wendell Court. 133, Wendell Court. 165, Wendell Court. 182, Wendell Court. All M2. 115, George Reed Drive. 151, George Reed Drive. 303, George Reed Drive. 321, George Reed Drive. 334, George Reed Drive. 320, George Reed Drive. 270, George Reed Drive. 116, George Reed Drive. 206, George Reed Drive. All San Andreas, all M2. 120, Toma Court. 6360, Delos Angeles Road, Campo Seco. 1201, Highway 12, Valley Springs. 2268, Evans Road. I live there. 214, Highway 12. 42, Highway 26. 3330, Highway 12. 1250, Pool Station Road. 1250, Pool Station Road. These are Valley Springs. 148 Main Street. 148 Main Street. 138 Main Street. 116 Main Street. 94 Main Street. 76 Main Street. 42 Main Street. 18 Main Street. 10 Main Street. All M2, all in Valley Springs. 1611 Watertown Road, Campo Seco. 100 Coast Center Drive, Campo Seco. 1275 Paloma Road, Campo Seco, all M2. 12313 Comanche Parkway South in Burson. 12114 Comanche Parkway South in Burson. 30 seconds? Okay. I'm probably going to be leaving off Copperopolis. 1109 Paloma Road, Campo Seco. 3365 Highway 12, Burson. 6634 Flint Coat Road. 1250 Pool Station Road. 150, I didn't get that. 4463 Rock Creek Road. Hodson Road, 1549 Hodson Road. 7845 Camp 9, and those last four I wrote, that's all the parcels associated with it. I didn't read those. Thank you.
Ma'am, can I ask you a question? Where did that information come from? Could I see that list?
A list of all the parcels in Calaveras County. We pulled the M2, M1, and ME listings off.
Okay.
That's from your parcels.
Thank you. Here you go, ma'am.
And the parcel numbers are there.
Thank you.
And that list.
My name is Terry Henderson, and I've spoken a few times with the planning commissioners, and at that time I had my statement written. Today I am giving you packets, and they have those statements that were written for that meeting, those two meetings, and also petitions that were collected by community members who are opposed to the asphalt plant. There were some that were submitted online, and also some that were written signatures, and there's a total of 959 signatures of concerned residents who do not want an asphalt plant in the residential area of Rancho Calaveras.
How many was that again?
959 signatures altogether, and they're in this packet. I also included a map, the one that was shown earlier by the Calaveras Enterprise, and I marked where my home is. I live on 3694 Laurent Lane, and that's about a quarter mile away from the proposed asphalt plant. So I noticed at the beginning they stated that their hours of operation would change from what they are now to 4 a.m. to 6 p.m. And my concern is my husband drives to Tracy every morning to go to work. He leaves our home at 5:30 in the morning. And there's already trucks on the road coming up at that time of morning. But if they start at 4 in the morning, it's going to be a lot more dangerous for our people who have to commute to the valley. We have a lot of residents who live in Calaveras County who commute down to the valley for jobs. It's just the way it is. We don't have the jobs here to support. And I don't feel that this asphalt plant will provide enough jobs to make any significant improvement in our county. And I work for the school district. I'm chapter president of CSEA, and Calaveras Unified is suffering from declining enrollment. And we have been declining for the last 4 or 5 years. And if anybody has been around the Rancho Calaveras area, there's a lot of houses out there for sale. But once this asphalt plant was proposed, Silver Rapids had 4 new for sale signs go up just as soon as that was announced. So people are leaving the area just because of just hearing about this asphalt plant is causing people to leave the area. My concern is that, the school district has made a vote to keep our small schools open, which is a good thing, I think. All areas need to have schools, and I think that brings people in. And so I'm really happy that the district chose to add, take the small schools off the chopping list because they were trying to remove our 3 smallest schools. And so anyways, but I think that the Board of Supervisors really needs to be very careful what type of expansions that we allow into this county. The rock quarry is there. We knew that moving into our home. We've lived there on Laurent Lane since 1994. And I remember as a child, as a teenager learning to drive, Rancho Calaveras was a bunch of roads to nowhere. So that was the place to go to practice driving. And at that time, the road, Silver Rapids, didn't even connect to the rock quarry. So that was something that came later. So when the residential area was put in, it did not have access to Highway 26 from the rock quarry. The rock quarry was installed in 1960 when I was a child, and that was to expand the dam. And one of my main concerns is that we were not informed by the county or Ford Construction or anybody as a resident of the area that they were even proposing to change the use of the rock quarry. And I really feel that the county has done an injustice to Stockton East Water District by denying to hear their appeal, because I feel like they have a legitimate appeal. They own 56.5% of the water rights in Hogan, so it was very disrespectful for them not to be notified and then not to be able to be heard. Thank you.
I'm Judy Morgan, and I live on Silver Rapids Road between Huckleberry and Antonovich. The largest purchase a person makes in their life is their home. This county approved the parceling of the land between the rock quarry and Hogan Dam and Highway 26 for residential use a long time ago. This encouraged people to build and buy homes there. Also, years ago, the term asphalt was taken out of the approved uses for M1 and M2, as has already been stated. Those who bought homes in the area were okay with the quarry, but asphalt production was not even imagined to be a use at the quarry, and an asphalt plant should not be there. It does not mix with residential. If this plant is approved, the county is robbing people of that area of the value of their property and the right to a healthy environment. Thank you.
Ooh, it's low enough, good. My name is Dana Gaspers. I'm a resident of Rancho Calaveras. We moved here in 1999, and what sold me on our house really was the way it smelled outside. I remember walking around saying, this smells like camping. I love this. The smell was everything to me. I grew up in Los Angeles County. In the 60s and 70s, we had smog alerts to the point where there were days where we weren't allowed to go outside. You could not go outside except to go to the vehicle. So I know what it's like to have bad air quality. We've heard that the quality, the smell is going to be minimal should the asphalt plant be put in here. My answer to that is minimal is too much. We don't want minimal. I spent a lot of time outside. I don't want to smell anything but dirt, horses, and trees. That's why we're here. Like I said, I'm from LA, then I went to the Bay Area for several years. We moved to Rancho Calaveras, Valley Springs area because we wanted to get away from that. I don't want it down the street. I don't think anybody does. To go through with this would kind of take away the reason we moved here to begin with. I know that's a little emotional, but that's how I feel about it. I'm speaking as a wife, a mom. I stay home. I take care of everything at the house, and I don't want it tainted with this. I do notice in the morning that the noise of the traffic from 26, we can hear it in the morning and the evening, and it has increased, and I imagine it's going to be more with the growth of our community. But I can only imagine what the addition of the trucks from the asphalt plant, how that would affect it. And I do want to say, by the way, I'm really, really impressed with all of our citizens and all the research that everybody has done, and I can only imagine what more we would have had we had more time to put stuff together. In addition, I've also been asked to read, in addition to the M1, M2 zonings, here's three specifics. Number one, in San Andreas, the Mountain Oaks Charter School is surrounded by M2 parcels on Pool Station Road. That's around the school. Okay, the second one is Arnold in White Pines. There are 12 M1 parcels off of Dunbar Road near Hazel Fisher School. It's already a highly congested traffic area. The other one is downtown Valley Springs. A large 31-acre M2 PD industrial parcel is located in the middle of town. I'm not really sure what R3 means. Was handed this. Anyway, the point of reading that is, should all that go through, or should this go through, we are setting a precedent, as she said, for asphalt plants everywhere. Not that we would do that, but you understand what I'm saying. Anyway, thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name's Nancy Furtado. I live at 3565 Silver Rapids Road. My concerns are, I'll just read my letter. I submitted it to you on Friday through email. I live just about the closest to the rock quarry, and I can tell you I'm not pleased with the proposed asphalt batch plant on the Calaveras River. The mishaps that can and possibly will affect our county's drinking supply is outrageous. There would be chemicals on the shores just above the water company. Need I say more? The noise pollution fumes, trucks up and down the roadways, loss of our property values, and I'm sure there's more. Isn't it enough? My house rumbles at times when the quarry blows up rock, and also a lot of residents have also claimed that. They say there will be no residual effects on anything. I do not believe them. They won't protect us. They do not even follow the mining rules and regulations that they have now. How can we believe that they will follow any other regulations? It is my belief that the asphalt plant is not a permitted use. And I also Googled, and I think that's a good search engine, cement, and I inadvertently put cement when it should have been concrete, batch plants and ready mix. But I hope you'll consider this information, even though I put cement when that's a liquid form of some concrete. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Randy Bassett. Excuse me. I live on Silver Rapids Road. I just have 2 letters I'd like to read. I didn't write either one, but I signed one. This is to the Board of Supervisors. My name is Justin. I have 2 brothers, and we all go to CHS. I love the summer. I live close to the river below Lake Hogan. I'm 15. Me and my friends go swimming there all the time, 2 to 3 times a day. Sometimes we fish, but mostly hang out with my friends. I'm thinking about it right now. If I close my eyes, I can almost feel the shade and the coolness on the river on really hot days. I can hear the leaves in the wind and smell the river smell. The blackberries are ripe now. There's nothing better than blackberries off the vine. There are all sorts of birds too. My mom said that's why we moved here, for clean air and water. I used to live in Lodi. She said that you're putting an asphalt plant in and stink up the air. She can't have bad air, something with her heart. I don't want stinky air, and my friends don't either. If you had kids and you lived by the river, they would tell you the same. It's bad for you too, and who would want to run around all day in stinky air? I don't want to move again, but my mom said that we will have to if you build the asphalt plant. I don't want this to be my last summer here at the river. Maybe all of you should come out to the river for a day and bring your kids. Then you'll know what to do. Just don't be late getting home or you might get grounded. This is signed Justin Dillon. Here's the next letter. Dear County officials, I object to the proposed asphalt plant at Hogan Dam Quarry for the following reasons. There was no notice to the public prior to the project being approved by the planning director as a permitted by right use, resulting in no opportunity to debate the issue and voice our concerns. Our right to due process was violated. Air pollution emitted by the plant will be trapped in a bowl-like formation where the quarry is located, creating a concentration of toxins in the air that will eventually deposit into the river, the lake, and in our bodies. The many residents with autoimmune disease, COPD, asthma, and other respiratory disorders will be harmed. Children are much more susceptible to these toxins. We must consider the cumulative impacts. At the very least, an environmental impact report should be required before approval is considered. Toxic fumes will spread through our town by as many as 10,000 trucks per year, each one loaded with 25 tons of exposed asphalt. Residents will not be able to enjoy or sell their homes due to the noxious fumes and the constant stream of heavy trucks. Property values will fall. Lower property values would result in lower property taxes paid to the county. Hazardous materials could potentially spill on the roads or into the river. We are counting on you to protect the health and property of the residents of Calaveras County. An asphalt plant should not be allowed by right anywhere in M1 and M2 zoning. This is everybody's backyard, and some of these parcels are next to medical clinics and schools. Our Calaveras zoning code requires a conditional use permit because of the hazardous materials used in an asphalt plant. The proposed asphalt plant is a project under California law and requires environmental impact report. Please vote in your best interest. Sincerely. So this is signed by me and 193 other friends, local residents here in the area. This weekend.
Mr. Chairman, members, my name's Arthur Ramirez. I live on Ross Drive, close to Valley Springs. I'm here for my neighbors, and I thank you for holding up your lunch for me for a few minutes. I'm just going to read a quick section of 1602 Fish and Game Code, Fishing and Wildlife Code now. An entity may not substantially divert or obstruct the natural flow or substantially change the use of any material from the bed, channel, or bank of any river, stream, or lake, or deposit or dispose of debris, waste, or other materials containing crumbled, flaked, or ground pavement where it may pass, it doesn't have to pass, where it may pass into any river, stream, lake. So I really feel that you need to look at your Fish and Game Code and make sure that these people have a valid stream bed alteration agreement. Please, thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Vicki Reinke, Calaveras County Republicans. I know we have two things on the agenda on the asphalt, and so I'm going to try to stick to this first agenda item, but may need to give you background information to understand our position. We supported, and we do still support, the recommendation and the resolution before us that says to deny the appeal from myvalleysprings.com. And one of their biggest arguments, I want to kind of give you a little bit of background. Why is the Republican Party even coming up here and talking about a quarry or an asphalt plant? And the reason is because we feel that we need economic development in our county. And so when we see projects come forward, we're going to study the project, see what we find, if it's a good project or not. And so that's what we did when we first saw the asphalt plant come out. We did some research, and I'll go over some of that research. But our conclusion after our studying came to the conclusion that an asphalt plant is a good project for a quarry. It fits right in. We also found evidence that it is not a polluting industry. So just based on that, that's how come we're here, because of the project. And we will continue to look at projects that come to our county because we're concerned about economic growth. And understand that the neighbors should and would come out and give their opinions about something being built near them. But you all get the fun part of deciding what's best for the county and whether or not the arguments are legitimate or not. So I'll give you some of the other side to that. So the main thing that they talked about was that an asphalt plant was not specified in the permitting or the M2 or whatever. Well, looking through and researching, I came up with all kinds of terms for asphalt plants. They were called batch plants, which is in that. That is an asphalt plant. As a matter of fact, when I went to the EPA's website to find out their information on asphalt plants, they call it asphalt cement manufacturing. That's the term they use. So the terms are different in different places you go to look. But I think industry-wise, a batch plant, asphalt plant, cement plant, they're kind of all intertwined. And basically, asphalt is like a cement product. It's mixed, it's got a liquid that goes in it, and then it hardens. It's just a different product. So anyway, that argument, I don't see it, and we think that the M2 zone should be a zone for an asphalt plant, and that what Mr. Maurer has done was correct. So with that, you know, again, this is a decision you're making now, but also based on what we've heard from other people before me, was that there's going to be pollutants, that the air is going to be, and those are some of the things that my research and our research found not to necessarily be true. I think the one telling piece of information that we found was that the EPA in 2002 removed asphalt plants from the HAP list of hazardous industries because they did studies on 2 huge asphalt plants, one in Los Angeles, California, and one back east, I think was in Massachusetts. And after those studies, they came away taking that industry off the list of hazardous air pollutants. And the same thing with the chemicals that are used. They show that they are in very small quantities, so that they aren't hazardous. And I think just common sense tells us if asphalt was so hazardous, why are we putting it on our roads? 30 seconds.
And also, they line water beds with asphalt. And when you see it now, a worker out putting asphalt on the ground, you don't see him wearing an hazmat suit. So, you know, I think we have to look at this also from a practical standpoint, and is it really going to cause all the problems that people are fearful of? Again, in our studying, we don't think so, and that's why we continue to support this project. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. I'm Al Segala. The Taxpayer Association. With all the fear in this room and some hatred, I thought I'd go incognito, so I'm going to put these glasses on. You don't recognize me now.
I feel safer now, Al.
We see your name tag.
We previously looked into this, and initially we thought this is going to be a problem. And then it wasn't until we got the full information a while later that we realized that, number one, asphalt is not a pollutant. And number two, there's so much regulation regarding emissions that that is already covered. They have a system to prevent the fumes from hurting the neighbors. If that were not the case, then our Taxpayer Association would seek to protect the property rights of the neighbors. But in this case, we're protecting the property rights of the owner of the quarry. And so we support the opinion of the planning director. Incidentally, we thought originally that perhaps the planning director was hired because he has a nice personality and is handsome. And then, but later we discovered he's actually got brains too. And so we want to compliment you on hiring him, and for him with his courage to look at something and come across with what we think is honest information which seeks to protect the property rights of the business. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments?
I just wanted to say, if it's been shown that the asphalt plant is not going to be an environmental hazard to the county, then I don't see a problem with it. You know, Vicki and her group has done research on it, and Al has looked into it, taken an honest look at all sides of it. And if the property owner had a right to do that when they started up and purchased the property and started up their business, if they had a right to do that, then that right should be protected. That's the your job is to protect the rights of the people, whether it's the minority or the majority. And people that have moved into that area, they're aware that there is the quarry there and what goes along with that. I mean, that's part of, you know, your due diligence when you move into an area, find out what's going on. So I'm supporting of the quarry if it's not going to be a hazard to the, you know, environmental hazard. Thank you.
Oops, I'm not supposed to do that. Good afternoon, Colleen Platt, excuse me, with My Valley Springs, and I'm also a Rancho Calaveras resident. I'm not sure what to talk about. There's a lot of things to talk about at the next hearing too, but some things have come up this time. Just first to address Supervisor Oliveira's question where the list came from that Joyce showed you. Where that list came from of M2 and M2 parcels, it was directly from the county GIS department. They actually gave us a list of 43,000 parcels plus, and we took everything out of there but that was left, so that's where that came from. And to address something that Mr. Segallo just said about the emissions already being covered, that's not so. The engineer's report that just came out a week or so ago only covers, #1, emissions from the asphalt plant itself. It doesn't cover emissions from all the trucks. It doesn't cover the asphalt fumes, toxic things coming out of the trucks that are driving through these neighborhoods, that are driving through our town of Valley Springs and the intersection. There's nothing in that report that covers those emissions, so all of those emissions are totally uncovered at this time under calling this a permitted use by right. Let me see. A couple of things that just briefly got mentioned that I don't think have been discussed enough is this business about the reclamation plan and the existing mining use plan. We don't believe the county can grandfather in a new asphalt plant under an old vested gravel operation. Basically, this was vested as a grandfathered use as an aggregate gravel operation. Now they're talking about a new use as an asphalt production plant. We don't believe that can be grandfathered in. That's why we believe it requires a use permit. Also, we don't believe you can grandfather an asphalt plant into the current reclamation plan. That also was for a gravel operation. That document is on file with the State Division of Mines and Geology. That was created in 1990 with the blessing of the Planning Commission. There was, it says, failure to comply with any of these conditions could result in revocation of this permit. For the purpose of this reclamation plan, the project site and activities shall consist of the following: a gravel operation and appurtenant structure equipment, and off-site hauling of an average of 10 trips a day. 10 trips a day. We're not talking 10,000 trucks a year. 10 trips a day. There was a staff report and there was an environmental review done on the reclamation plan only. And one of the conditions says, 11-9, any change in the nature of the proposed operation shall require a distinct and separate mining use permit and mining reclamation plan application and approval. This is a document on file with the county, and it's on file with the state. The applicant was Ford Construction in 1990. What else is relevant? The plan was reviewed by all mandatory state and local agencies during processing. The Division of Mines and Geology responded to the proposed reclamation plan with a recommendation that the plan be supplemented to respond to several mandatory items to be witnessed. After reviewing these responses, planning staff also had additional recommendations. So this went through a lot of review. This is not just a boilerplate thing that came out of nowhere. The conditions here were carefully thought out and applied. And also quoted in here, as I mentioned before, this is the only clue we've had as to what the existing traffic was to be. It says the applicant indicated that the operation has an average of 10 hauls a day, and that the volume is not anticipated to increase. Now, we've been hearing from the applicant that their truck traffic will not increase. 10 trips a day to 10,000 a year is an increase. I just wanted to get that out there. So this reclamation plan is based on that. It's based on 13 findings and 14 conditions, was filed by the Division of Mines and Geology. You have a letter here that says we will keep this in our file. So I don't think this is something to be taken lightly. I do believe the reclamation plan should be addressed and revised if this asphalt plant goes in. Robert Selman mentioned that in 2006 with the press release. Updates to the reclamation plan may be necessary when they came at that time with an application. Thank you.
Any other public comments, sir?
Hi, my name is Peter Race. I'm from Genelin. I live on a river. I live right next to Rancho. And just want to bring a couple of items here. A long time ago, my mom always told me people will judge you who you're running around with. I appreciate bimbos and bimbettes as much as I do employees or hired hand from Caltrans. Nobody start worrying about asphalt, how poison it is. $100,000 at 12 and 26. People say, oh my God, it's going to pollute the air when those trucks go up and down. Well, it depends where you're bringing the asphalt from. How much pollution is that put out? I have not heard, maybe it's not roses when asphalt is poured. I'm sure it's not, okay? But it sure is nice when somebody wants a bicycle path through the forest to have an asphalt. I'm sure it's real nice when you're pouring asphalt from San Francisco to the forest so people can ride bicycles. Asphalt is sure is nice when you're going to ride your bicycle from San Francisco up into the hills. Now, well, there's a lot of bimbos and bimbettes in this world, and they're very easy to panic for whatever reason. But right now, how many trucks are going to go through, how much noise it's going to make? I haven't heard anybody bitch about the garbage trucks going through. I haven't heard anybody bitch about the school buses going through. Can you imagine if there would be no asphalt roads? How those kids got to school? If there's anything that can be shown that that asphalt contraption that's there was not approved or not made into the original conditions of the development of that gravel, fine. That's one thing. But somebody purchased that thing a long time before Rancho got developed. And I'm sure some folks who live near, on the other side of the river, which I do, if you don't do your due diligence and think you get a good buy, so you can, you know, really beat the racket. I bought this property, I got a good deal on it, but you never had the brains to check in. Hey, what's the big empty lot over there? They used to be complaining about go boom boom over there when they're blasting rocks. It wasn't thunder, it was blasting. If they're against asphalt and the pollution it's made, they better check with the officials. There's a guy by the name of Moss over there. I trust him. Is it a pollutant? Because right down the street, there's a fishery. The fish swim in that asphalt tub. If just because you don't like the development of Valley Spring, I don't care if you claim to own it or not. I haven't seen anybody come up with the money to pay my property tax yet. I don't care if who they work for, who hired them. I don't care if it's Caltrans paid for the folks. And I really appreciate all these great minds coming out of from all over the state, and neighbors to save our butt from pollution. Well, then I remember that's the same bimbos who were telling me that Mount Himalaya is going to melt, and then a couple of years ago we were supposed to be underwater. But I was looking forward to have a boat next to my house. 500-year flood. A lot of people can be scared, panicked, don't like it.
30 seconds.
They can keep drinking the Kool-Aid, but they can be scared. The world's not going to end. It will help the economy, and it cut air pollution down because you don't have to truck asphalt in from Timbuktu. So that's a plus. And all those bicycle riders are looking for nice, smooth asphalt roads to save the world. I appreciate bimbos and bimbettes. They're nice to see them when they realize reality of life.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Peter.
You're welcome, sir. Anytime.
Hello, I'm Clyde from Valley Springs, and I'm not an idiot, and I'm not hateful. And that's the reason I wasn't going to come here and talk, but I own property in Valley Springs and Rancho. And I actually came up and visited Hogan's in 1965. I was a kid then, no gray hair. And so the quarry, when I bought the property, the quarry was a hole in the ground and it wasn't there. The quarry was not a commercial venture until Rancho went in because there's no way to get to the quarry besides Hogan Road, which at that time was part gravel to get to the quarry. The quarry, when it was dug in, and actually it started out with two small mines. I believe one was 5 acres and 1/7, and the mine was called Pothole Mine, and that was 100 and some years ago. So this roughly 10 acres has grown into over 40 acres. I mean, this mine is ongoing, and it's actually taken other property in the meantime. And Lockatinna wasn't here, so you couldn't get through the quarry to Lockatinna either. And when the quarry was first dug in, it was conveyed by a conveyor belt from the quarry to where it went to the dam to dump that, and then it was closed down in roughly 65 when the quarry was done. And believe it or not, a supervisor came to my house and goes, gee, we're thinking that they're wanting to open the quarry up. Lombardi's owned it at that time. And what would you guys think? Well, Mr. Fox lived on the corner of Silver Rapids and Hart-Vixen. And there was not a four-way stop there because you didn't have Lockatinna, so there was no reason to stop. And so he didn't want the trucks going by it. They put a quarry in at 65 miles by his road. So how about a four-way stop? The county put a four-way stop in. Dixon lived on it, and at that time, back in the 70s, the roads were brand new in Rancho. I didn't have to complain about the potholes or nothing, they were new. So Dixon goes, well, they're going to tear up Silver Rapids. So the guy goes, I'll pave Silver Rapids, all the way from the quarry to the highway, to highway standards, which is better than the county roads. And then we wanted about the times. All those conditions were met, but they're gone now. So the quarry, and then at that point, they got upset with the supervisor. They're going to recall him because he brought the quarry in. And so at that point, they tried to recall him, and it didn't work because the paper came out and asked us what we thought about it, because there was only 4 people even lived by it at that time, and I was one of them. And we said we didn't have a problem because we worked it all out. But now they're doing this. I don't get a phone call from the county. No one tells me nothing. You know, I live there. I have property up in Strawberry. Every time they work on 108 at Strawberry, I get a letter from the planning department. Can you believe that? Tell me, hey, we're going to do some work in your area. Of course, you're going to put a toxic waste dump by my house. Now, that's not, you know, shouldn't notify me for that. I mean, when they're getting ready to ban the trails there, Victoria comes to my house, hey, Clyde, we're going to let go of the trails and stuff. I go, well, keep the ones by the river because I use them. Okay, we'll do that. No one tells me this is going on. I get someone, a neighbor, did you know this is going on in your neighborhood, Clyde? This just amazes me. And then I go to find out what's going on. My supervisors can't talk because it's now a thing. So now there's gentlemen that come up here and they want to speak, oh, you want to speak for 5 minutes? You know, so this is when you guys are supposed to get the input. We get 5 minutes to tell you, and you're going to educate yourself? There's some people I'd like to listen to more. Now me, I probably wouldn't want to listen that much to. So I'm going to let you guys go. Good luck.
Any other public comments? None? Okay. So I've been requested by staff to take a lunch break. We have to follow the rules, so that's what we're going to do. We'll be back at 1:45.